within a machine,
which
is like a rule-based engine, basically inventing in the 1600s, basically AI and NLP as a concept.
Yes.
The same person freaking out about the printing press, which is this fundamentally weird. You can't really argue that he is not seeing the future, but yet he is still panicking, which is, I don't know. It's just such an amazing time. And then we can, of course, do the classical Swedish example, internet är en fluga.
Yes.
And so on.
I mean, I think the printing press and the whole Gutenberg movement, when he started to invent those machines and the fear that technology would bring to society was interesting, right?
Oh, it's totally interesting. And also looking upon how the printing press as a technology reshaped how we communicate and how we think. I mean, just take a heat map and overlap, basically. Where do we have a printing press? Where is the Lutheran type of Christianity have 100% impact? It's like, bang. It's 100% identical. And the interesting part is, what did he do different? Instead of using the fancy Latin, in secret parchment roll that nobody can touch, he just wrote in plain, folksy German, put it on walls for everyone to read. And then we can look back a couple of years in history. Did we see another person in power writing in the voice of the people, sending it?
Who could you be referring to?
Who could I be referring to? Let's not mention it. But we see the point, right? So history keeps repeating itself over and over, which is, I think, it's why I decided that, I can't decide. Should I be focusing on technology or should I be focusing on the human behavior? Because they're all the same. It just keeps repeating and repeating.
I mean, the power of the word or language, I guess, in general, is surprisingly efficient or interesting, I think. And going back to the original question of ChatGPT, that is, of course, also, completely revolutionizing a bit how people are either super scared or super excited. And before we go back to ChatGPT, let's just keep the discussion a bit on Twitter and the person, I guess, Trump here a bit. And I think that story is rather interesting. And he used or abused, social media in different ways. I'm not sure what you think. Do you think it was is it a good thing that technology like Twitter was used to empower him, or his ability to opinionate or create opinions on society was a good or bad thing?
I don't know. We get what we deserve, I guess. I would come to the short answer. But the thing is, technology itself is neither good or bad in most cases. We can argue this going forward. The smarter we get, the more kind of decisions we have to take about those things. But
let me rephrase it. Do you think it's a good thing that Elon Musk brought Trump back to Twitter?
Oh, yes. Entertainment reasons. Yes, 100%. Yes, one of the smartest moves. No, but I think also interestingly now, but this is easy to say in Sweden, right? It would be a whole other story if you go to, I don't know, a small little village in the US where people actually believe in what he says. Here it's most likely for a lot of people like, it cannot get any worse. And then he doubled that in some sort of weird fashion. And it's like, it can't get worse. And then he keeps doubling that for 10 years. It's impossible. And then he just figure out a way to make it even more. So basically we live in that old movie, the Idiocracy, right?
Oh yeah, Idiocracy.
Good movie.
Yeah. And I always try to find, I think it's important to represent both the pros and cons of whatever, question you are thinking about. And if you think about bringing Trump back to Twitter, you can think about the good or potential bad consequences of that. A good meaning potentially that we're trying to protect freedom of speech in some way, I guess. A bad potentially if he were to continue the way he did with the Congress thing, it could go bad, or if he instigates, violence in some way. What's your estimate? Do you think it's better to keep freedom of speech high, and even though it can cause some potential harm?
I would say yes.
Because we had a very recent thing in Sweden and as well recently.
Exactly. No, but I think the problematic part with today's society is that technology has moved in such a rapid pace that we haven't learned the consequences. And I think we can't really stop society. We can't stop technology either. So we better just rip off the Band-Aid and learn this. And the cost to that, because as soon as we learn that this is not the thing, right? As soon as we learn that, will not be a problem in him trying to do these things. The tricky part is that we aren't really there yet. I mean, just as an example of today, there's this kind of Pfizer, so-called Pfizer, let's do air quote here, scientists sharing a lot about the backstory of COVID. A lot of people start sending this to me, and I said, but who is this person? I tried to Google his name. I tried ResearchGate, Google Scholar. I didn't find a single paper on this person. Does he really exist? I doubt that he is the head of research at Pfizer in the COVID unit and has never published a paper. Yeah. It doesn't...
Sounds weird.
Sounds very strange. So I think we all get into those, and we are more likely or more prone to get into those type of conversations when we are affected by the topic itself, when we feel threatened or we look as ourselves as a victim and so on. So I think we need to kind of build up that reflex as a society to go, is this Emperor's New Clothes or is it real?
Emperor's New Clothes, yeah.
So in that topic, I think it was a good to bring him back because, I mean, let's face it, keeping him away just going to emphasize that he was right in the first place anyhow, right? So I think that
becomes the martyr instead. Right?
The martyr, right? So it's a modern version of the martyr. Actually, this is a very fun story. This is a book. Should we write a book? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep the core principles of freedom up there and freedom of speech. You know, speaking of recent times in Sweden as well, doesn't have to involve technology as well. And as you said, you know, technology is and should be neutral, and it can be used for good or bad. And in sometimes you can abuse freedom of speech potentially, but it's still super important to keep it, right?
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah, super agreed. What is interesting very often with these things historically is that as a new piece of technology are introduced, we talked about the printing press, for example, we see a shift in power. I guess we saw a shift in power with this typical president, which is not really a president, kind of a more entrepreneurial, if I'm nice, kind of individual. So it's a slight shift in power, but I think it's one of the really good example that old power, because I think he would represent old power, even if he would say something else, actually figured out how to use new technology.
Yeah, right. He saw the
potential, which is scary in that sense, because usually they don't, right? Usually you are a professional at what you do, and then you can't see the forest for the trees. So I think that is actually more fascinating to double click on that. But nevertheless, we can talk 2 hours about this.
So what do you think happens if we move back to the original topic of prompt engineering and ChatGPT? What if Trump gets hold and start making use of ChatGPT?
Oh, wow, this escalated. Oh, my God. Yeah, Can we just bring out the computer and try to pretend? Write the reply in the sense of Mr. Donald Trump on this question itself. No, that's going to be a crazy question. No, but I think...
Okay, yeah,
I think he actually does.
We can actually do it.
Okay, he's already doing it. This is going to be scary. No, I don't want to see this. No, this is not good.
Okay, so what should you ask us? Try to describe... do you have a suggestion, Goran, for what we should try?
By the way, this has already been done. There was somebody who has been utilizing ChatGPT to say this commercial in a voice and a sound, not in a voice, but basically in a tone that Trump will do. And it was really funny. So yes, we will test this, definitely.
It's going to be a bit of login here. Good. No, but I think it's interesting, and I bet he's already on this.
It's a new technology, right?
It's a new technology, and
if it's put into hands of people that use it, it could be used for good, but it could also be used for bad, right?
For terribly bad things. And I think just look at his personality. why are we talking about him now? This is just so weird. But I'm going to keep doing. But he has this spirit, because it's so easy to say bad things about him, right? Yeah. But I'm going to actually try now to say something good. Okay, which great. There are. Yes, and he has this kind of, like this kind of curiosity, which is almost on the border to stupidity, like a kid, this kind of, what can this be? And you can see it is his, but you can inject bleach or what. It's just like these fundamentally weird ideas. And he just puts them out there and let them go by the wind. And I mean, it's easy to laugh about these things, but think about kids. Think about how a kid can ask the most scientific of questions, right? The magical questions, like, why is the sky blue? And, all of these things. And he has a little bit of that curiosity, or it's like, almost like it's unguided. I don't know how we do it, but I think from that perspective, it's very, very interesting.
All right. So what do we prompt?
What were the, in the style of Donald Trump, describe why we should storm Capitol Hill. No, this is tough.
No,
I don't think they will allow it if you write that. You will be warned or something if you write that.
We can do on Twitter. In the style and argument of Donald Trump, is it good that Elon Musk let him back?
Perfect, great.
Brought him back to Twitter, because that's the original question, right?
Yes.
So then I don't have to answer this. This is good. Then we can just cut everything else out, and it's just a 2 minutes
argument of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Was it good that Elon Musk brought him back to Twitter?
Oh my God, I don't want to see this. I'm going to look away. And then I'm going to see your face. And then depending on the reaction, I'm going to look at the result.
Cool. Yeah, I think ChatGPT understands misspelling, so just go for it.
Yeah, they're actually very good at it. Yeah. Also swapping language in the middle of things, which is...
And also in Swedish, it works surprisingly well.
This is the thing that I had to try the other day. My girlfriend is from South Korea, so we did some examples like, this is how you can cheat. Yeah. Uh-oh.
It's thinking hard. It's not good.
No, this is where they had to put in a real human. Yes. Sorry.
Someone pressed the censor button. And
my data set and my learning just go until 2021, or what is that reply it usually gives?
Yeah, that has been trained only
on data up until a certain day. My cutoff.
I'm not allowed to.
But if we just speak about the potential, if someone were to want to abuse ChatGPT and similar kind of large language models to generate text in their favor, so to speak, you can use different techniques. You can do the prompting in a certain way, right? To do this. And I think you spoke a bit before about, people don't understand really what prompt engineering is, and they sometimes simply write a bad prompt. Or what was your thinking there?
No, the whole thing is, I saw a lot of kind of, posts on LinkedIn, how people put screenshots of, I asked a question, look at the bad result I got from ChatGPT. It's not smart at all. So that could be then one part, you don't want it to work because you feel threatened, most likely. On the other hand, what we also see is that most likely this is that they do not understand how to use the tool yet, right? Yeah. It's not a familiar tool. So I'm pretty sure we were in the exact same phase when Google introduced PageRank, and we went from keyword-based search into PageRank-based search, right? All of a sudden we have centrality, we have like importance within the results. And I was like, this bad. And, it's uncomfortable, I guess, because we haven't figured it out.
It's very political. It's really,
I love this answer.
It's very politically correct.
This is HR that wrote this.
So yeah, exactly. I think this was a person behind it actually. So in the question is, in the style and argument of Donald Trump, was it good that he was allowed to return to Twitter? And ChatGPT responds, there is a subjective question and opinions may vary. It is important for individuals to have the ability to express their views and opinions, but it's also important for social media platforms to enforce their policies and guidelines to ensure a safe and respectable environment for all users. That is the best politically correct answer.
This is good.
It's really good.
I was halfway through. I was so tired of listening, so I just zoned out, which is the job of this. Like, make it so boring that nobody cares anymore. Good job, HR.
who needs any communication or like PR, departments now when you have this? You can just ask it to provide a politically correct answer.
What I'm impressed about is that basically it's really good in the way how it describes things and write things. So you can actually really utilize it in a way how you can improve your copies. So you can write a copy and just put it here. So like, hey, can you optimize this with better wording, better grammar, etc. And it really does a good job. And I think as such tools is really, really nice to have. Now, if you ask him for many questions, most of the time is just make up stuff.
Yeah.
And Jan LeCun was actually pointing.
He wrote an awesome comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Please tell us.
So Jan LeCun wrote that basically.
Who is that for everybody that doesn't know?
Yeah,
Maybe the listeners know.
I think that Anders is the best one to explain who this is because he's one of his favorite peers.
Well, he's one of the deep learning pioneers, part of the deep learning mafia, together with Hinton and Bengio as well. So those three are all from Canada, and now they're one is at Google, Hinton is at Google, and then LeCun is at Facebook, now Meta. And then Bengio is still in academia, but Jan LeCun has a lot of thinking about how to really go forward with AI and also come closer to some kind of artificial general intelligence in the future. But he wrote an awesome thing about ChatGPT and why not Google or Facebook produced something similar. What was the exact, I don't want to paraphrase it too much. I have a vague memory of it. It was something like, perhaps Google didn't want to publish a tool that makes stuff up.
Yeah, there was something like this. Yeah,
so it's such an awesome comment.
So the argument was basically that most of these language models or basically multimodal
large language models are basically making up stuff. It's basically like Mid-Journey. When you prompt something, if you put your picture there and say like, okay, make me old, it doesn't make you old. It imagines a new person with your somewhat characteristics or something like that. And when you take it from that point, it's understandable that this tool also, you shouldn't be using it as actual, to bring you facts. Yeah. It can give you some ideas how to phrase things and maybe some kind of information, but you should not rely on it.
Why not? I'm going to give you 10 articles, all faked, all 100% truth with source. No, but what you can do.
I like now where you're going. So the 100 times repeated the lie is a truth, right? So
exactly.
How do you know?
No, but the thing, what you can do actually back to the whole prompt thing is like, you can also pre-feed it with your special training, right? So what you can do is taking, let's say I have 10 papers on a topic on Aladdin boxes here. I take my 10 papers on that and I use the abstract and prompt it. And for it to train based on the previous posts above, take that fact and rewrite it, because now it's going to not add, it's going to rewrite what's already there, written, fact-based. So you actually telling it what to do and scoping it down. I think the problematic part when it's just in the box totally over, because if you do this, it's going to keep most likely in the box. I tried it a couple of times and it's annoyingly accurate, going back to how you actually use it, because this is just the same way of using it.
Right.
You have an initial copy, you have an initial material, and you just want to fresh it up or make it more grammatically correct, or you want to use a tone of, I don't know, trying to explain something as a kid.
Make it more exciting. You know, just basically any dumb copy that you have, like, which is very dull, just put like make it more exciting. Use words like exciting, amazing, and things like that, and it will basically fit them right in. And it's so as an enhancer to your work, I believe it's an incredible tool to use, and I recommend to my marketeers and in design and etc. We already use this in production, but you cannot use it as a tool that basically you should this is truth, rather than basically use it as an enhancement to your work and maybe to generate ideas. We were writing songs, not writing songs, but we would say like, hey, write me a song, let's say about like a person that just basically lost the love of his life, and he's basically sitting in a bar and whatever, right? And the song should be basically 2 verses, a chorus, and then a second part, which is 2 verses and a chorus, and maybe a bridge. And it gives you a very, very good let's say, somewhat text. So now you don't have to accept it, because I believe you cannot replace lyrics that are done by musicians, because that is also their, they're telling their story and their passion, and it's often emotion involved in all of that. But it uses some kind of words that you usually will not use, and most of the time people are limited in how many words that they use. And here you can utilize it as a.
But I think you're onto something, looking to kind of creativity and innovation in that sense, right? Very often what we have is, I wrote a post of this after our last lunch.
Yeah.
I tried to express basically the creativity as a differential equation. So basically my fundamental idea is that you need some sort of new or deep knowledge in one sense, right? If you don't go deep, it will be hard to build advanced things. I mean, if you can't code, you can't build any of these models, right? So you need to have some sort of deep knowledge. However, the problematic with too much of deep knowledge is that you're the master of the past. You're the master on now, very often not the future, right? So if you can apply some sort of new perspective, very often annoying perspective in that cases, and then you have a process or something to facilitate that so it doesn't cause a fight. With that done, magic usually appears, right? So in the sense of that, you can somewhat almost replace it, but if you can use that as a making ChatGPT prompt you, it's like, give me 10 examples.
Yes.
I like example 3, 5, and 7.
Combine them,
iterate, give me more.
Yes.
And then we start to intertwine again. And this is where magic happens. And this is what I said earlier on. I do not believe in looking upon people alone or behavior or technology alone. It's when it gets gooey where it's fun, right?
Right.
Now, I have like the double sword like argument about ChatGPT. For one,
this is fun.
For one, of course, it's amazing. It's also amazing because it actually is made available in an easy-to-use way for everyone, as opposed to previous large language models that has been around for quite some time.
A very long time.
And Google has Lambda for a long time back, which actually is the very similar type. It's a dialogue system. It's a large language model, and it can reason in a surprisingly efficient way. However, it's not open. No one can access it except the people that are actually working at Google. And we had a famous priest that was also a Google engineer that said Lambda was conscious, which is another question. But, that's probably amazingly good. But Google chose not to put it in production, chose not to make it public, because they don't want to be affiliated with things that make stuff up, which I think is a really, apt way that Jan LeCun said. Similarly to Facebook, they had, for example, they had a number of language models like OPT and also Galactica that produced scientific articles, and they actually put that up publicly. Yeah. But they were, they had such a big backlash because of that, so they actually had to force to shut it down, because people said, well, you can produce fake scientific articles. Well, no shit. I mean, this is what generative models do, even ChatGPT.
Yes.
And I mean, it's amazing in many other ways, because it is strongly biased to write things in a very confident way, so it sounds truthful. So it's really hard to know when it actually is factual, which it is to a large number of times, but sometimes it's not, and you can't really tell the difference because it's trained to always sound super confident. Yeah. And then you have all the other things it can understand and write code in a astoundingly good way.
It's very good, actually.
It is.
I use it sometimes for just error proning. It's like, I didn't think of doing it like that, but
I actually had a problem in TypeScript, some front-end work I did, and I couldn't figure out why doesn't this work. And I tried to just do a normal Stack Overflow search, Google search. I couldn't find the answer. I just wrote a single sentence and added a small quote of the code and said, why doesn't this work? And it gave a perfect answer. It was like amazing. Yeah. It is truly amazing in many ways, but you shouldn't think it's like comes from nothing. It's based on so many years of work, and what
so many engineers also sitting actually fact checking these.
Yes, so it's not really a revolutionary improvement by itself. It's based on so much other work that also so many other companies are doing, But some people or companies are perhaps a bit more careful about not making stuff up.
I have an angle on this because you mentioned something. Google doesn't want to release something that makes shit up, right?
No.
It's okay.
Or Jan LeCun said that at least.
Right, Jan LeCun said that,
and I agree.
Yes, and exactly, and I agree too.
I don't agree, just for the sake of it.
No, but I'm coming to another twist because I think the moral of the story is actually how people have perceived what the tool actually is. Nobody said that ChatGPT will give you the realistic facts. Nobody said that it's going to be 100% realistic of what basically needs, what you're searching for. All of these things was not said. People just took the tool like they usually do, and they just made it into what they wanted to feel like. But for example, Google can release, if they have a similar tool like this, they can say like, hey guys, you should not use this. It should be an exclamation, right? You shouldn't use this for facts. Use it as an optimizer to your innovation and creativity. Try to optimize things with it, but do not trust it full. Because usually companies like Google will not release something that will make them exposed to risks.
Or risk abusing AI as well.
Yes, exactly.
ChatGPT can actually easily be abused for sure.
Yes. So
which is also the fun part, isn't it?
Yeah. But if they in the first, now I can actually do a screen of this so people can actually see what we are talking about. Let's see. Is it there?
Oh, this is the merge part.
Yes, exactly.
I can only take it afterwards, right?
Yeah,
if I behaved good.
No, you can take it even now. My point was like on this first picture, before you actually try GPT, they could actually say like, hey, do not use this for facts. It cannot write this and that. It's not accurate, but use it for creativity, use it, have fun with it. It's completely different, but nobody informed people. And now people think that basically this is it, right?
Yeah.
So, and this comes back to your and mine lunch that we have. So me and Stefan had lunch last year in December, I think it was, or maybe late November. It was one of the best lunches I have had last year.
It was very good food. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah, the food was shit, but that was different. It was not shit. It was good, but it was not the best. But it was the best lunch I have ever had. The things that I learned on that lunch was fantastic. And one of the things that we were discussing is actually user adaptation of tools. We were talking about marketing, we were talking about sales, and somehow when we are coming back to ChatGPT, it also relates to the topic because in general, why this is different from anything that we have seen before. And this has been stacking up because we had Midjourney, DALL-E, and many other things before that. It's just because it's so simple to use. And I will come back to your the one-liner that I took from that lunch. You said like, does it feel like a gift?
Yeah.
Does it feel like a cheat? Yes.
Does it feel like a gift?
Yes.
Holy crap.
It feels like a gift. That's why it's so contagious. It's so so thank you for that lunch, but we will talk about it a little bit later on.
No, but I think we can actually do a nice bridge to that. Yes. I think we started that with something very similar to this. So early on in my career, I had this idea. I want to rebuild, or what's it called in English? Restore churches or old paintings, right? So that's what
renovate in some way. Or
yeah, right. But restore, not like the horrible one they did the other day, but the real actual one. So this is what I studied first, and then I noticed that maybe I don't want to work with this, but what should I do now? I need some professional degree. I come home with a background in restoring art and these kind of things. So I went to one of the big universities here and did a master. And that master I wrote about the misuse of perception in history of man and focused on Soviet Union and how they, long before Photoshop, let's see, what is it now, 5.5 when they introduced the clone stamp, I think. Long before that, 100 years before, retouched photographs, removing people from paintings or from photographs, in and out, move places, And the thing here is, if you are being removed from the photograph, your physical appearance, cliffhanger, you're gone, right? And yet up until today, people look upon photographs as evidence. We have manipulated these photographs for over hundreds of years, long before computers. Yet we keep doing this as a phenomenon over and over and over and over again, which is exactly the same story as we see here. Is this truth? Is it not truth? Just learn how to handle it, for God's sake.
Yes.
I think we should add a topic here, speaking more about this, because one question I receive sometimes is, what is the answer to all these kind of generative models that we have seen in recent years? Some people, including some big countries in the East, say, let's label every output of whatever system you have as AI generated or not AI generated. I think this is a bad approach.
But it should be so easy to hack.
It should be easy
just
to
run
hack.
it in 2 and then add some other typing on top of it. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to get confused.
Let's add this topic. I think it's interesting to talk about, and just to give a bit longer motivation behind it is, I think it's come back to what you said about images. We have a surprisingly high trust in seeing a person in an image and believe that can be used as evidence, even though Photoshop has existed for a long time. Now with generative AI, you of course can generate images of anyone in them.
And need a photograph even.
No, exactly. You can generate from scratch. And how can you then trust images? Is it to force companies to put a label on whatever image you see to say this was AI modified, generated? Or what should you do? The same with text. If it's generated by ChatGPT, should you be forced to say, this is something that was generated by AI? Or if you have a recommender system recommending movies, songs in Spotify, whatnot, should we be forced to say this was a recommendation generated by AI in everything?
I mean, it's also fun to just, where do we stop, where do we start in this? Because extending this thought, just mentally, just to F with myself, I guess, would we do this on a human? This is recommended by a human at the age of 35, or, where do we draw the line there? Is it a general human? I mean, my opinion is going to differ from yours.
Yes.
In some cases, we have a big overlap, but yet they're going to be different in many cases, right? So where do we draw the line for humans? We don't really, in that sense. Or we have a very gooey grayish zone, which is like semi-okay. And then according to culture, this is how you behave in that system. And then we add shame on top of that as some sort of construct to keep it together. Okay, big guns coming out. Better behave.
No, but I think you bring up a great point. I mean, why should we trust output from humans more than output from AIs? This is really what I'm trying to come to. Let's not wait with this discussion. Let's take it now, if that's okay. Yeah. And we haven't done the proper introduction of you, but we'll do that shortly. But I think this is such an interesting topic. So let's just go there, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so the question is, of course, we could label everything as this is generated by humans or this is generated by a machine or AI. Yeah. That could be one way. But then the question comes, as you just said, if it's generated by humans, why should you trust it suddenly? And why should you not trust something generated by AI? It could be that some AI is actually more trustworthy than some output from humans, especially if they call XXX, and you can fill that in with whoever
the previous person mentioned.
But isn't that what you mean? I mean,
exactly.
I think the distinction between machines and humans is not perhaps the core thing that should be used. Rather, it should be some kind of measure of trust or some kind of measure of
referenceability, maybe going back.
Way to, some kind of confidence score, some kind of way of either. I mean, you brought up PageRank before. And just to go back to that, PageRank was revolutionary because it was actually built on trust, I would argue, in some way.
Yeah.
It was basically a graph structure of the internet, and the graphs or the edges that pointed to sources that had high authority or high trust were ranked higher in a search engine. And in that way, you simply got recommended, if you call it that, from information retrieval machines or search engines, content that has higher trust. So it was basically, I would argue,
exactly.
It was a way to rank in trust.
It's very much, and I think the way I often explain this is also it's a phenomena that you can see in real life as well, right? So I used to be very introverted in school. I like to be alone and build things. I turned red as soon as I had to talk to people. And I wanted to do math and be alone and fiddle with my stuff, basically. And then one day I got adopted by one of the popular kids in school. So before this, zero page rank, literally. In this case, I wasn't popular. And then after being like adopted of this other person, which I don't know why it happened, it just happened. All of a sudden, my influence in the group became super high. Not because of I had many connections, only one connection that was super connected, right? So the phenomena actually comes from how do we store trust within humans, I would argue. That's the brilliant part of this. And if you look upon it like this, it's the same. And I think this is back to argue, how should we trust a text? We should trust it if it's referred to by other things or fact check it. It doesn't matter if it's written by a machine, for me at least.
Exactly. I think, and please disagree if you don't agree, but I think, the proper way is to think like PageRank and say that if we see someone write an article on LinkedIn or a tweet on Twitter, and then we need to know, is it true or not? It will be really hard just by looking at it and do fact-checking directly. I mean, no single human can do that efficiently. But if you can see where the source is, if it's a certain AI system, perhaps it's Lambda or ChatGPT, and you choose that I believe more in Lambda than ChatGPT, then you trust more just because it comes from a certain system. And the system in this case is an AI system. If it's written by a human, you may trust some human more than others. And if it comes from that human, you should trust it more. So it's not really if it's an AI or a human. It's from
trustworthy source, basically.
Yes, it's basically the source. And
I think, it's a very interesting concept. And then building on that, because one thing that a computer can do, which is obviously hard for people, because our entire idea of memory, that it should be like something written to disk and then stored like this. It's not. We can debunk that later. But what I'm thinking here, it would be very interesting if I have any sort of generative AI and then I do some input, I do some prompts. Some of this will be truth, right? Some will be combined truth, but still true. Some will be made up bonkers, right? What if I can just color this red, yellow, green? Yeah. With that, amazing. Like a real-time lie detector. And we can also put that on people. Yes, that would be fun.
I would love to see ChatGPT start to disagree with people at some point.
Oh.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
Because now, it's just trying to generate the output that it thinks you will like, no matter what the prompt is, right? So you
just like humans. We want to be popular.
Some humans are not as agreeable as others, though.
But they just want to be part of the non-popular group, which is another group where they are very popular for saying non-popular things. So it's just the context, I guess. No, but I think this is a very interesting topic, actually, looking back to. Oh, my God. Because the interesting part here, we talked a little bit on this, also Facebook or Meta or Google and DeepMind and which are all doing amazing things when you get behind the scenes and are able to play with them. Mind-boggling, which of course we cannot talk about. But what I think is more interesting in this case with OpenAI is the whole story with Microsoft and the possibilities to use it in other ways. Because what happens when we release these things, we start to fiddle with them, we start to learn how to act and how not to act. And the previous attempts to do this ended up all in, swastika heaven or something.
The J chatbot that Microsoft released some time ago.
Exactly.
Perhaps people should just understand the background here a bit, because it is an interesting story, and Microsoft have tried and failed before, as many other companies. No shame on Microsoft.
No.
So many have tried and failed.
Shame on humans for bringing out the bad of us into the system.
So many humans have trusted the wrong person and gone the wrong way as well. So, of course, it's the same problem occurs human to human as it does human to AI. But, okay, so it was the Thai chatbot, right? If I recall correctly. And it was a chatbot, I have to recall here, that I think it was put on Twitter as well. And then
it was put on Twitter and then tweeted away and tried to interact with things and
learned online more or less. It learned very quickly from
from not the best of sources, let's say it like that. It was trained on humans.
Yeah.
And I mean, we aren't always nice, right? So
I think some humans started to troll it as well, and so this was a fun thing, and it started to move into Nazi kind of thinking, and then very, very quickly it turned into a very obnoxious Nazi, and that is not a good thing, and this is probably why we need some more ways to evaluate, I guess, trust and factfulness in systems as well.
To that point, I mean, but also like, because if we take these two examples, I mean, first they tried, and I mean, imagine the learnings. I mean, I guess they weren't sitting there and hoping for it to become like horrible, because it was really horrible, and there's no way to justify it, and it can be trolled or not, but the learnings from that is like insane. And I think that is the interesting part of doing this. And imagine then putting it into, now with OpenAI and Microsoft, and putting it into basically every Office program, which is insanely distributed, right? All of a sudden, the amount of people that can actually train and mess things up, and for them to learn from, because this is the journey I see. This is how we learn a new technology. We don't learn it while it's locked in. We're going to learn it when it's in mass adoption. We'll also learn that sometimes we are feeding it with bad things, sadly, but
let's hope it goes better this time for Microsoft.
It has gone better this time, right?
It hasn't really been put in production.
But the other one is like 4 hours. It was horrible already. But
of course it's going to go good. Now they have ChatGPT, right?
Of course it's going to go bad. I think it always does when humans are involved.
We were joking after work. You remember on the Word you had this like what is called like thing that popped out on the right, and it just does on the computer, and then it helps you to improve like things. Ask me anything.
Oh yeah. The little thing in the corner.
Yes, exactly. It was like
the office assistant, or
the office assistant
thing.
The gem.
Exactly.
Of course.
So now it's going to be ChatGPT. Like
exactly. And how will this improve? I mean, this is interesting. Yeah. I mean,
it's been tried so many times in the past, and so far it hasn't really worked out. But perhaps
it's a lot closer to working out. Let's see what works. And I think it's also, maybe this is not a binary thing. What worked, what did not work, because then what worked, make that better, rethink the other parts, which is interesting. But by doing so, they also put pressure on Google and the other vendors to kind of, okay, the game is changing. It was very stable for a very long time. Everybody was building things in the basement. If you know them, you know what's going on, and most people don't, right? Yeah. Most people can't walk into DeepMind and say, show me why you say that transformers are basically GNNs that won the hardware lottery. Let's talk about this for real. And then they show you. But I mean, this is for a limited few.
Yeah, I mean, let's stay positive and hope this is a good thing. I think actually, Google has been in such a lead for a long time in terms of understanding and providing information to humans. It's good that it gets on competition, but I'm still a bit irritated that people don't understand that Google still is far ahead, I would argue. So we'll see what happens, but it's nice with some competition from Microsoft and OpenAI, I think, to them.
It would be interesting to see what Google and how they re-navigate. I think that's what I'm... And if they will.
They had Lambda long before ChatGPT existed. I think they are actually far ahead already. It's just that they chose not to make stuff up.
But I think this is the interesting.
And they need to put it into a working business model as well. They need to productionize it in a way that it is efficiently, or is both economic and properly useful for humans. And that is something they have such long experience of doing. So let's see what happens. But at least they're getting some competition.
Let's see where it turns out.
Yeah, with that, let's do the very long overdue introduction.
This was a record. So we are 48 minutes in.
Perfect.
Let's introduce the guest.
Stefan Wendin, very welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It has been a blast so far. 48 minutes in and counting.
We didn't start until now, so now we're starting.
What? We didn't record this?
No, of course we record everything.
What the hell?
Yes.
It was an after work, you said.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I don't think we met that before. I'm not sure, but you have a very, interesting background, and it's a true pleasure. And I'm looking forward to speaking so much more about with you, about so many things. You're an expert in data science, graph. You're a public speaker, and very vocal and very communicative in so many ideas and business strategy and so much more. So I think the list of topics that we can speak about is endless. But let's start with you a bit more. Who is Stefan Wendin?
Who is this strange boy trapped in a white male body, almost getting to 50? Yeah, no, but who am I? I mean, as we mentioned a little bit before, or I can do now, I'm presently at Neo4j, a graph database company. I am on garden leave, leaving the company.
Yeah.
But still my heart is in with anything networky, right? So the way I look upon the world is basically in the shape of graphs. Someone is connected to someone, a gene is connected to another gene, and so on, right? So that's how I make sense of the world, long before joining Neo, and most likely long after leaving.
Yeah.
But let's see. Let's do an episode in 5 years and see.
But I don't want to get into too deep discussion directly, but I think graph networks and graph, some people, the word graph is so abused and ambiguous in so many ways. And it's also one of my favorite topics. So I think it deserves a bit, just a short, more description of what we really mean here.
Yeah.
And for me, at least, one way to speak about this, I would say that, if we speak of the different formats to represent data, I would argue that graph representation is probably the most general one. Would you agree?
Yes, totally agree. And most also likely to what we're trying to kind of replicate in one sense, right? I often say a lot of people, I have a background in strategy. So a lot of people were very confused when I worked at the time, joined a not at all famous graph company. They're like, why are you doing this? This is insane. What's wrong with you? But I said, for me, it's very little different, right? So you have a messy reality, and then you have a model world. This is true for data modeling. It's true for strategy, right? So you have a simplification where you do your calculation and then you put it back in. It's going to not be 100% representation because it doesn't exist. That's reality, right? So for me, it's very much the same. And I think looking upon it as any network structure, that's how I draw a problem. I have something that's connected to something in the context of X, Y, Z that then leads to this. So basically, it's the graph we're talking about is basically a network, right? How you would draw something, a circle that connects to another circle. In the easiest of shapes.
I think we should shortly dig a bit deeper into that and see how like relational data or tabular data or even images or text actually can be represented as graphs, I would argue at least.
Yeah.
Then the question of what is the most efficient representation, and that's another thing.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, but going a bit further back, perhaps, can you just travel backwards in time and
travel back in
before
time.
You joined Neo? What happened then?
What the hell did I do then? I run my own boutique kind of innovation agency, coming from 15 years or 12 years working with the big ones, so Publicis Sapient and these kind of huge companies. I kind of understand that this model is totally broken, right? You can't...
Which model do you mean?
Management consultant and all business bullshit, if I were to be very frank here. Can I say bullshit? Is this a bad word?
Yes, and especially in that context, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. You never know. Sometimes when I get excited, I do say bad words. Sorry for the behalf of the listeners. No, but I think a lot of it was broken, right? So it's just like you can't optimize your way into the unknown, right? You can fix the past, you can fix the present, but sometimes the future is so fundamentally different that you can't really, everything that you learned from the past is going to actually go against you, right? So it's a story rather about unlearning versus learning in that sense. So sometimes you need to figure out what to let go, but the tricky part is, what do you let go? I think the best example to just do this is like the classical kind of business school, Michael Porter's 5 forces. You know, basically locking everything out, driving up prices, being a little bit evil for those that doesn't know it. I mean, still it's valid today, but in a networked society, now we're here, you and me, talking as some sort of collaborators. Most likely we can also stumble across in the future as maybe competitors or something else. So it just changed so much. So a lot of the thinking doesn't really apply anymore. A lot of the models didn't apply. So that's what I started doing. And that's also the reason I ended up at NEO. I was researching the technology for one of the big German car manufacturers.
Which one was that, if you want to say it?
I can say it, BMW.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I ended up and wanted to learn more. And then I just fell in love because all of a sudden it solved, first of all, it solved one of the problems I spent pretty much 80% of my career doing. So I was always the way too technical person working on the business side. And the job of that person in my career or over my time has been to go, Stefan, we need to change the data model because we had a stupid idea. Can you go to IT and ask them? No, they can't do it. And then I should give them the explanation and then go, oh, Stefan, you sound like IT. Stop it. Right? So that's what I did, run back and forth. And one of the things that I fell in love with NEO was this kind of schemaless, the flexibility to kind of remodel it. First of all, how my idea looked just as my idea. It didn't look like tables that are very, like a very abstraction, right? All of a sudden, my idea looked like my idea in the data, which made it so easy to talk to other people's, meaning that it actually bonded IT and business in a way I've never seen, which was like, wow, so many change management programs have tried to do this from a behavior point, but what you really needed was just another representation of the data for people to not feel threatened in that sense. So I think that's how I kind of landed into my way. But I think there have been anything from music background to art.
You also have a musical background?
Yes, legendary musical background. It popped up in another podcast the other day. I think it was Sista Måltiden with Ashkan and the guys. They had Doggelito as a guest from Latin Kings. Yeah, and then, of course, they called me and we had to unbundle the 6 songs we made in my kid's bedroom.
So you were in some band? Or
I did the first 6 songs for Latin Kings, for example.
You did?
Yes, I did. And then also was part of starting up the Swedish House Mafia thing as well.
Jesus,
so
I had no idea.
There's a lot of secret strings that I never talk about.
I'm a bit...
by the way, so I was just in the beginning there, we were starting Swedish House Mafia and just like drops it like that.
Small thing, just did that.
I don't know which one to point out. That's the thing with me, right? That's why I said before, what I really like about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He has that curiosity or stupidity, It's like, oh, what is this? Putting his finger on paint, right? It's going to be sticky. He just has to try it.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of that, and I think that's one of the things that I like with him. There's a gazillion of things I hate with him. However, I think it's also look upon what you like in people.
Yeah,
even if
you
it's
can learn a lot from Donald Trump for sure, right?
So that kind of unconstrained curiosity is something that have followed me around my entire career. That's how I learned to code, for example. I just wanted to build a synthesizer. So I need to do some horrible programming to make the sounds that I wanted. It was a very bad idea. I built an organ of old vacuum cleaners, so it was a horrible idea. The experience, however, was an amazing idea, leading me into all of these other examples, right? So it's this kind of curiosity, I think, which would summarize me, and the ability to take abstract things and make sense of them. Pretty much what I've done. And apparently a lot of people need help with those things, figuring things out, I guess. So that's me. Long, weird intro maybe, but...
A MacGyver of...
oh yeah, this is good.
The business or tech world, I'm not quite sure. Both, perhaps.
That's the thing. Yeah, I can't decide which one. I usually blame my divorced parents for this. I just run between trying to mitigate my entire life, and I just kept doing it at work.
So a pro musician or songwriter... and also, of course, a data scientist and graph expert, etc. But also a public speaker, right?
Yes, indeed.
What brought you into that area? Why
Yes.
you done
This
that
is a
quite
fun.
lot?
So you remember I told you I used to be super introverted and turned red as soon as I have to talk to people. So in another previous position, what happens if you know too much and you quit, you go on garden leave. This is my way of hacking academia, which I think is fundamentally flawed in many ways, but I like
interesting topic. I add that as a topic later.
No, I love doing research, right? So that's what I do when I get into these things. And then I decided to figure out basically shame and as a social contract. Well, what is it? How does it function? And what are these things that you're afraid of, right? So there's going to be a bucket list of things I would be afraid of. Public speaking would be one big thing. It would also be snakes, because my father scared me of snakes after I collected them under my bed. Apparently you should not collect vipers under the bed.
But to turn to public speaking somehow. And
this is what we're going to do now.
Yeah, okay.
It's a very strange way. So then I did every single day for 6 months something I was really afraid of.
Really?
And that kind of nudged my behavior. So in the beginning, it's easy to find the snake stuff and those things. But at the end, I started to figure out there was so many weird things. You know, your friend from KTH that you meet on the street say, oh, let's do a get together. Are you coming? It's the blah, blah, blah of this month. Oh, yeah, of course I'm coming. You know the story, right? And then that time comes and goes like, why did I say this? I don't want to do it. So then you come up with an excuse and you don't go. But then I decided to become Jim Carrey. So I just said yes to everything and I just went and I made it into a project. And I ended up in so many weird things. And people are like, do you want to do this? Of course I want. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Why do I say yes to this? Very inspired by the movie, but it's one of the funniest projects I ever done. And then I ended that by speaking in front of 4,000 people and without a topic. So I said,
really?
So this is a summary of the project. So I said, I did this project. This is the end of it. What should we talk about? What do you want to know? So I went out there on a flip chart and panicking. But then looking back on this, something fundamentally changed in my mind. I reprogrammed my whole existence in that sense. So then I started to enjoy it. And then I noticed that a lot of it in my previous career was that I was, I always had somebody else being the Steve Jobs. So I was very much the first person. I just want to build things. Let me be here in the basement. You go present it, get the money and give me more money so I can build more things. And then I was like, but now I can do it. And then it just opened up a whole other world, because now I can actually articulate what I want. I can also get more attention and draw in to build exactly what I wanted. So it became one of my favorite topics. It's also a very good way to formalize your thoughts, just as writing, right? Yeah. It's easy to have a perfect thing in your mind. It's easy to talk about a perfect thing with like-minded people, but publishing and putting things out there to be criticized, it elevates your thinking.
No, but I really like the idea of doing things you're afraid of and putting yourself out there. I actually had a thing with, I'm a wannabe musician. I'm a wannabe singer. I've tried, I've failed, and I keep failing.
Can we get a little bit of a singing now? Would that be too much?
Och det regnar och regnar. Det här är Lasse Stefans. But
I like it.
I forced myself actually to start singing karaoke a bit.
Ah, cool.
And it was partly because I wanted to learn how to sing, but it was also partly because I wanted to get over my fear of making a fool of myself.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a bit of what
very much the same kind of thing. And also like what I always say, it's like with improv theater, which I love, right? That fact that you can't plan it, that's the thing I love. It's just like, it's basically about somebody changing you, because you can have a perfect idea, like you're doing something, now I will react, but then in the last second, Goran comes in and do a curveball, and all of a sudden, my perfect pitch and cue, it's all gone. I just need to improvise, right? So it's this ability of allowing change to just take you for a ride. And I think being fine with that was one of the greatest lessons I ever learned, because I become such a much better person. Very often I have a perfect idea that of course is not perfect.
I think this is something that should be more or less taught in like school, right?
Yeah.
In the elementary school, or the way, for me at least, people that can communicate well have so higher, abilities in life.
Yeah.
And if people just had the ability to speak up sometimes, do public speaking, or learn just how to communicate efficiently and clearly, and have the rhetorical skills to do so, I mean, I don't understand why that's not present in Swedish schools. I mean, it is more present in American schools.
Yeah.
And I find it strange that we don't,
and also that we don't really help people doing it. I think it's one of the things that I found very hard. They're like, oh yeah, present your stuff. And it's like a nightmare, right?
Yes.
I can recall the exact nightmare that I had. It was we're doing about Robinson Crusoe, some crap. My 4 friends, we were 4 in the group. 3 of them bailed. Then you could argue that the teacher would have said, okay, Stefan, you can do this next lunch. No, the teacher said, oh, Stefan, then you have to cover for your teammates. So there I was, not only doing my part that I hated, but I had to do it 3 times extra, which I have no content for. I was basically up like a lying large language model, improvising for 40 minutes, lying in panic. Yeah. It's like, instead of looking like this, how do you build a speech, right? You might want to start with some interesting hook or something, get people's attention. You make them laugh, feels good for you because you're now connecting, and then you can go on this journey. You have a safe haven over here because that's going to make you catch your breath. You can just like simple structure of storytelling instead of just present your stuff and I will judge you.
Yeah. Cool. So public speaking, I mean, you've done it a lot. If someone wants to get good at doing public speaking, do you have any tips or tricks that you could share?
Yes. Make sure that Goran book you for a big event of 4,000 people. You're only allowed to bring a board to the stage. Maybe this is what you can do next time. Just bring me and I will improvise. No, but I think one of the things, think about what I do very often is thinking about the journey in itself. So I'm a designer at heart. So what I do is I design the experience, meaning that, I look upon it just as a song. I have my intro, I have my verse, I have my chorus, I have my bridge, I have my whatever structure I have. And all of these are then places. So instead of trying to do, I'm going to do half an hour public speaking, or I'm going to do a full day, which I do very often. Instead of doing that, I'm going to go from A to B. That's the only thing I focus on. So then that's maybe the intro then. Yeah. A is the intro and B is the first kind of thing, right? Yeah. Then I just do that. And then I have a little bit of a catching breath, resetting, recalibrating. And then I go for the next phase. Then I just have to land that phase. And then all of a sudden, I just broke down the whole elephant in small pieces. And I took one piece at a time. And all of a sudden, it feels good. And then I can also see and look upon this. So I just often draw out my lecture and speeches. And then I look upon, how does it look energy-wise? Is it too much of, information, facts?
So you look at the audience and try to...
I look at the speech and I also try to learn from the audience.
You look at the speech afterward?
After or before, both. What I do, basically map it on energy level and type of content. So if I'm going to have something thought-provoking, for example, then I would do one thing. I stole with pride from Stephen Hawkins. I remember when he was here in Waterfront and seeing his deck, I was like, what the fuck is this? I said F words. Holy crap. But it was with Stephen Hawking, so it should be good.
It's also allowed.
It's also allowed. I like how he just make me feel safe. He doesn't realize it's just going to get worse. I'm just training myself to become bad. No, but what I saw was, he'd do a lot of bad slides. He had that GM that we talked about, Microsoft 95 clip arts and Roadrunner. And I don't know if you have seen his lectures. It's just like the slides are so weird. And then all of a sudden he drops this equation about how things returns from black holes. And before that, I was sitting there laughing for 20 minutes, which is genius if you think about it. Because what happens when you laugh? You release endorphins, right? Just as you go out running. Have you tried to be angry after running? You are angry, you go out running. Try to be angry again. You can't. Because your whole body system is programmed to open up your cognitive abilities as its highest peak, right? All your cortisol level goes down. So I think that's what I try to do. So if I have a hard fact that I need to convey, or I have some mathematical thing for a non-mathematical audience, I do a lot of bad jokes and then I slide it in because then they are kind of relaxed and open. So I think a lot of this, how to design the experience, which is what I really do in everything. So
put humor or some kind of informal kind of part of the talk in there, perhaps in the beginning as well, or
No, but I do a lot of training for this. I did it at NEO as well. So I usually say like, your 5 most important seconds is the first one. So, I mean, we are in a company that also do a lot of events, right?
Yes.
So what do all people do wrong? They come up on stage and then tell the audience everything everybody already know. So it's going to go like this. Hi, my name is Stefan, which they already seen because they come to my show, right? They want to see my lecture. I'm going to talk about, I see the other title. I am from this company, which they already know again. And then even better. And here we are in Kista-mässan. It's like, did you think they didn't know where they are? So you spent your most precious time telling everybody the information they already know. It must have been much better if they just wound up and said, do anybody want a toothpick? 100% better opener because everybody's
actually did so if you look at how data innovation is built, it's 20 minutes. And the reason why it's 20 minutes because I got inspired by TED Talk.
Yeah, TED Talks. Yeah.
TED Talk basically said like, you should not do this. And then I was like, there must be some kind of a catch. And then I started measuring early in 2000 and I think 13, 14, 15. How long does it take for a person to get into what people came to listen to? And usually between 5 and 7 minutes. Yeah. This is how long is the intro. Hi, my name is Goran. I'm coming from High Pride. High Pride is doing this. We create this. Just to give you the setup, we have 60,000 vehicles going on the road, and this is how. So because I think, but it's also you cannot judge it because people want to set up the scene for the presentation. Yeah. Somehow because they want to show like I have a credibility to talk about this. The company is in this situation. This is the complexity of the company. That means that they want to put the emphasis on setting up the scene before they start presenting. But now, does it have to be 5 to 7 minutes?
No.
Can it be just basically,
no.
let's say, 5 to 15 for 30 seconds? No. Okay, fine. But my point is that sometimes you need to set up the setting.
Can I just build on this? How I would see it. So you know James Bond, right?
Which one?
You can take. Which is your favorite one? I'm talking about this guy.
I would take Anders there.
No, but think of this. Have you ever gone and watched any James Bond movie where they have told you this? We are now going to be in Monaco. We will have the co-star here. It's James Bond 000. He will jump out of a plane. Wait.
It's a wrong example. What does James Bond first do? My name is Bond. James Bond. What I mean, he says it all the time.
No, wait to my point now. What he does is this. It's going to be like this. You see the eye open up and you're in the movie. What's happening? He's on a plane. The door is open in the plane. He's fighting a giant with steel tooth, punching him in the face. They're flying out of the thing. He doesn't have a parachute. He somewhat get to that steel tooth man, rip off the parachute, bang, punch him in the face, maybe shoot him. I don't know, whatever he does. Then he go on the parachute, lands on a little yacht, swings in, go into the cabin's hut of that, where there's a beautiful lady, very sexist, this example when I think about it, but it's James Bond, it's not me. Lay down, and then he reports back to M. Mm-hmm. Right? And then comes the credits. Then comes the story. This is the opening credits. Now you're going to get the information. What he did, he took you on a journey.
Yeah, but then the first minutes, right. Okay.
The first minutes. So this is what I'm saying. Yeah. You can do 10 minutes of those, but don't do the 5 first most important second.
Right, but that is good.
That's what I'm saying.
That we can agree on.
James Bond talks going forward.
Yes.
In Data Innovation Summits.
Exactly.
It's an awesome metaphor. I love it. It's a great.
Sorry for being so wired up here, but it's just a topic.
No, but that is a great thing because I think but also comes with a skill. It comes with experience as well.
Exactly, because it's like this is exactly what you don't want to do. You think that you need to do this, and I was thinking the same. So I just go out and say weird things sometimes just to test, and people are, what?
I usually open the conferences, and now I have been in. I was in Dubai and Singapore recently, so we did events there for the first time, and it was very interesting because, and I have done this for 17 years. So when I go and open, usually we have a slide deck, but I usually never use it. Or I will use portion of it depending on where we are. But as you said, something which is very important is to know who is in the room and what is the energy, because that is actually the whole point, right? Yeah. And I learned this very early when I was playing music and etc. You go to a bar and you're gonna start playing, but everybody's like dull, sitting down on a table. It doesn't work, right? So you read the energy and it's like, okay, this is not working. This is actually a true story. So I just came from Singapore, different culture. So I'm going on stage and I'm opening a conference. Hi, my name is this. This is a story about data innovation. Nothing. I'm cracking a joke. Nothing. I'm trying to direct myself to one person.
I'm in Helsinki.
Yeah, that can be true. I'm focusing on one person, another person. I'm trying basically to just, go directly and put some attention. And I'm not reading anything. It's just basically flat. And I'm coming down from stage because there is no change over time. So basically, I'm announcing Hendrik. Hendrik comes on stage, and Hendrik is like, all right, let's do this. Super big energy. He goes in 30 minutes, 20 minutes. He goes with his slides, futuristic. This is what we're going to do with machine learning. AI is this and that. Everything is beautiful, right? Nothing. Nothing. He comes back. He sits down on the table next to me. It's a round table. So it's Hendrik from the right, me in the middle, Robert left Hendrik, me in the middle, Robert on the right. And then the head of analytics for Ministry of Health was there. So I'm saying to Robert, like, this is going to be shit. I mean, this is 8:30 in the morning. No energy. There is nothing. They don't even clap. So this is not working out. So I'm saying like this might be bad. But then we spoke with the person that is next to us, and I said like, hey, what is going on? Right? They said like, no, this is it's a culture. We don't clap here. Yeah. So like, yeah, but in Sweden, even if you suck, people will still clap. So like, yeah, good try, man, good try, and then you go back. Yeah. So after some time, I just basically went and said on stage like, hey guys, this is basically these people have prepared quite a lot for this event. So we can encourage them with a little bit of applause. And then towards the end, everybody was clapping, everything was good. But usually when I go on stage, I want to read what is going to happen, because you need to be flexible and agile to shift your presentation if it doesn't work. Sometimes technical works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes strategy works, sometimes energy works, sometimes it doesn't.
But I think going to that adaptability, one thing that is a very clear and concise tip that you can actually do. You remember that we talked about, does it feel like a gift, right? So the 99% problem most people do, they go to a conference.
Can we get into that? Does it feel as a gift? A bit, 5 minutes at least. Yeah. Where is it coming from? Because I think it's so genius and so nice.
No, but so, now I don't know what to do. Which story? I'm just going to wrap up the speaking part here, right? So we do this, does it feel like a gift? So it's a screening question I've had for my entire career. But in this context, I think the number one thing that people do wrongly is that they pay to be on a conference often by sponsorship. And then they have, of course, goals that they need to meet. So they go there to take. That's the problem. That's where it starts, right? You cannot do that. You can't go to people that you don't know and take things. That doesn't work. You go there, you give. So the single thing I do every time I go on stage, give. And people are like, Stefan, how can you be good at selling? It's because I don't sell. I just double down on giving the value. And value can be energy, can be all of these things that you said, but I need to give it. Right. And then when I have given this, I can exchange that experience that they had for something that can be valuable.
Can you give an example, just to make it a bit more concrete? How do you make it be perceived as a gift in some way?
Yeah, I think my favorite topic that we talked about, it was from another conference / can I do some advertising for them? Yeah, no, it was, what can it be?
No problem.
It's like 5 years or something. Coming there, it's, what can it be, like November, December, there's like in the darkness
in Finland.
In Finland, it's like the only thing you think about, why did I go here? That's the only thing I was thinking. It's cold. It's like I have to walk. And it's like
Finland is beautiful. Otherwise, I would say.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. I love it.
And there's a lot of karaoke places there in Helsinki.
I don't like to go in the morning though. After having egg smør.
Okay.
For breakfast, but that's another story. Yes. And then I see the banner. And it's like mind-blowingly beautiful. It says like this, paraphrasing a little bit. Who in their right mind would ever go to Helsinki in November except you badass?
Sold.
Did I feel like a badass going on stage? Oh my God, I was so pumped. I loved that after that. 2 sentences. So that's a perfect example of taking your worst thing ever and then just turning it around. It felt like a gift for me. And I'm sure that every single one do it. So if we can make bad weather in winter in Helsinki feel like a gift, there's no excuse for other people to come up with creativity solution to these kind of problems. So I think it's a very, very good example of these things. And in the context of speaking, I think very often what we do, we try to go up on stage and sell things. So this is one of the stuff that I noticed also from it comes from the Tinder project actually. But what I noticed also selling graphs. So I focused a lot on my time on EO to talk to executives. Yeah. So building a new technology is obvious that you need practitioners, right? So the whole company is focused on practitioners first, developers, data scientists. But I try to crack the nut on how do we talk to executives, because that's a whole other game. Because that when you come to a certain deal size, that will be the most important part. And in that, I started to think about, you can look upon from a structural level. So what do Neo do? We build a database at the time that offers things that a lot of people actually said they could do before, which they couldn't. So there's this innate problem that I have to prove myself. So we try to talk technology to people. Some people love it. Executives most likely don't. Maybe the CIO, maybe, a big maybe, if he does have time. Usually he shouldn't have time for that conversation, at least at that level, early on. And then what we try to do is that we try to do the other version. Anders, tell me all about your problem, your business problems. Would you like to tell that to a consultant? If I only know your problems, I can give you a solution. You don't want to tell somebody your problem if you don't trust them. Right. So what I do very often is that I do my talks, which is based basically on understanding human behaviors and how we as humans act within a system based on the rules of the system and interaction of others, meaning my behavior, the strongest predictor of that behavior is people within my network. So all data about me says nothing about me compared to the data around people that influences me, right? The strongest predictor of my behavior is people around me, not that I look in a certain way or I make a certain amount of income. Yes. So then I talk about this, but I don't mention anywhere Neo4j. Right. I do my talk, I build on this, we do some exercises. Maybe I have one when I draw up a toy graph and I say, which of these nodes are most important? I have people talk about it. Of course, it's a trick question. Depends on what is considered important. It can be degree in one case, it can be betweenness centrality, and it can be closeness centrality. And we talk of the different concepts. And then I said, cool, how many of you are thinking that we're going to do graph and math today? No, I didn't think of it. And then they are starting to come up with this. But if this is this for this case, couldn't you use it like this? So all of a sudden, while putting them into my graph world with value, the gift, they will then share their problems freely with me. Right. So I just give, and then...
But that is more like a... I often, so because I have the background in sales, right? So in order for you to, so people do not buy products, they buy trust. They buy, and trust basically, when we're talking about trust, is basically, do I trust you enough to give you my problem?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do I trust you enough that you will solve that problem without actually maybe scrutinizing on my vulnerability at this point of time? The other part is actually about building a relationship, because the relationship part will bring you to the trust, right? You first build relationship, then you build trust. But if in the first instance, when you meet somebody, because that is when you evaluate what is the value of this relationship, you and you talked about it. What is the value of this relationship? And if I, in my very limited time, judge you that your value is to sell something to me, but I don't trust you enough for you to own my problem, then I will not do business with you.
Yeah.
That is the problem with it.
That's why I don't trust this guy. Now it feels like afterward.
Yes.
Yes.
So now you're getting in. Okay, good. So can I take over 15 minutes?
No, that's okay.
Because we need to go back to AI. But before that, I would like to dedicate 5 minutes each on the 3 stories. The first thing is, does it feel like a gift? Which is actually a good bridge to this.
Yep.
The second one is the Facebook project. And the third one is the Twitter project. Tinder project.
They're all the same. So
yes, I know. But you can
we can tweak them in.
Right.
So in the beginning, we talked about my idea of perception, right?
Yeah.
The paper I wrote. And it's something that kind of fascinated me along the time. So, early on in so-called social graph, let's say it like that. Let's not mention names so I don't get sued again. It's very expensive to get sued of big American companies. Let's say it like this. Or settle. That's what we did.
Yes, I have experience, so I know.
Oh, good. Fine. This is what we can talk about afterwards. So what I did was early on figuring out. So at the time, your social score, which all of us have, was completely open in Facebook, which is super fun, right? So you can use this to figure out if that girl that you're interested are visiting your profile without doing anything, because that's going to alter the scores. So a lot of these things you can do. So it's like, oh, this is fun. How can I use this? So I started to use it as a way of removing all of the unnecessary friends that give me no value, because I had too many friends and I wanted to unfriend like a couple of thousands of them. How can I get rid of these people? It's too hard labeled. So I wrote a script, unmatching people based upon if they were only not providing any value, but just taking value, basically.
How does someone take value?
Oh, they just don't give me anything. They just go there.
But that's zero value then. Is it
exactly.
Is it negative value? Or
no, it's just that me being hard on them. You're very correct here.
Yeah, okay.
So they're not stealing any value, except they're just being boring.
Okay. They're stealing time, perhaps.
They're stealing time. Yeah, true. Fair point. So then I started to do that, which is very convenient. But then we have this rise of messengers. You remember where everybody we had the Kakao in South Korea. We have the WeChat. We have the Messenger in Facebook. We have the WhatsApp. It's just like exploding. Everybody needs to have a messenger. And I was like, now we're here again. Why on earth would a written text be me? What's wrong with people? Why do you trust this? The same as the photography, right? So what I started doing is I'm starting to write small bots. In the beginning, I'm obsessed of doing them as smart as possible. Very early on, that was very hard, especially as...
What year was this approximately?
So this is, we can Google when they opened the messengers at Facebook. So very, very early on. So 10 years-ish ago, it should be somewhere around there. Yes. There's some stuff that you can use, but it was fairly complicated. So then I start to see like, what if I can do a stupid thing? So I start to see what is the one with the minimal amount of code that I can actually do, and made that into a sport. So I noticed that I need to have an opening phrase, which reminded them to set the stage that they can trust me. This is Stefan. So if I have a hard-coded almost phrase that I call you, that's good. And then I could put whatever random crap in the middle, and then I ended with some certain way. That would be one part. Another one that I used was the classical kind of how to beat chess master things. So you chatted to me. I took that message. I sent it to Goran. Goran replied, and I just forward. So I was just a forwarding machine. And then I did a lot of this, and then Facebook changed, basically.
And you automated that? So it
yeah. So I didn't do anything for 1,000, 2,000 people. At the beginning, they were just chatting to each other, which is very convenient. So then I was just out of the equation. Very good. And then I followed like, what if I prompted in weird topics and see how that evolved over time? Very interesting. But then Facebook changed design like every other week, it felt like. And I had one of the early kind of developer accounts. So they put all new features on me, meaning that every single code I wrote broke. Because it wasn't, of course, production code. It was like duct tape code. And that's what happens when you get a message with code in. And bad example, you would just read the code and see, what is Stefan doing now? But a normal person would go, it's a hacked account, a terrorist attack. Wee. Report. That's how it got expensive. So it's like, I can't afford this anymore. So every time they change code, I'm just going to send a random GIF.
Okay.
So if it changed, then any prompts will be override with just send a GIF, just keep them entertained, basically.
GIF like in what?
GIF, not a gift, like a GIF, animation.
Animation GIF.
Yeah. So then they start sending these. And my favorite example is when my colleagues that I work with every day, they send something. I send a guy that is super drunk, or the script sends, a guy that is drunk, wearing a sombrero, trying to look like a Mexican, and he's humping. And then that is connected to an egg with 2 jokes. So it looks like a mouth and 2 eyes. And they're going like this. Wow, great idea, Stefan. Let's go to La Neta, which was just open in Söder. Let's go there for like the Mexican afterworks. Super stoked. I get everybody together. Come when you're done with your meeting. I understand you have a lot to do. And I was like, no, it's 2 random GIFs, animation. What's going on here? Bam. This is the first phase. How can this be useful for business? I don't know yet. It will be. So then all of a sudden what I see is the rise of Tinder coming. Even more funnier, right? So at the time I'm single, I'm thinking like, there's this post everywhere, how, single guys, like, wow, so many beautiful girls on Tinder. 2 weeks later, 0 dates. Yeah. And, we have the girls doing memes and things about like how guys are the most boring persons on earth, only saying, hi, what's up, hi, and so on. In this, I was like, this is cool because the API is all open. So all data you can take out. And I was like, maybe I can use my hacking skills to just improve my dating life. This should be a fun experiment. So I start looking upon which times does these messages occur? When do matches occur? Around 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, and then 7.
Is that the most popular, like when you have positive matches? So
exactly. That's when you have the match distribution. So that's what I looked upon basically. And this is like 10 years ago again. So it's like way back. So I think a lot of these have changed. So then I looked upon that. I looked upon how many pictures I should have, what type of pictures. I looked upon character count. I noticed that the average of all guys is 10 characters. How can you do an opening line with 10 characters? So I need to do more than 10 characters. I add a lot of these data features.
Yes.
I also see one thing, which is fairly depressing, but it's also easy to see. The average amount of matches for a guy is around 10 to 20. The equivalent number for any female, the average is 700 plus.
Really?
Yep. So it's very evenly distributed here. So I'm kind of understanding why people sending hi. So my first initial thought, very good. I just need to automate this.
So just to understand the numbers a bit more, I mean, for one, you could think that the average number of matches is because guys connect or try to connect it to extremely more people than females do. Do you think that's correct?
I think what we have here is sexual selection. So we see a power distribution. So if you touch and I tried this, I took my female friend's phone. As soon as I touched it, it matched. Yeah. And there I can go like alone. I can go half an hour, nothing happens. So algorithm just learned that I'm horribly ugly and then will lower my thing, right? So it's actually skewing that. So being mindful of these things, but back to the story then, what I did. So I said, okay, let's do an experiment. That's what I do. So I need to do some sort of, how can I use my knowledge and technology to up my skills?
Right.
So I basically looked up pictures, did reverse Google search on people's pictures. I really nerded down on them and write very funny, quirky things. I took help from my female professor in literature and write the perfect pickup lines, and generally was a nice guy. I managed to get my stuff up to 46%.
What do you mean with the reverse image search? Did you take the picture of a female or that person?
I took the person's pictures and then I put them in Google search, and there's a couple of other alternatives. Also, if you look in the little bit shady part of internet. And then I basically see, who is this person? Where does this picture?
To identify the person.
And then I did the classical accidentally on purpose. Oh yeah, was also in AIAW Podcast. What, are you working on the same street? Magic. Classic, very sketchy. with all of that cheating, I managed to get almost like a 50-50 hit rate,
Really?
which is very good for a guy. I mean, I'm like decent. I like to talk. I'm not super sexy, but I mean, I'm not horribly ugly either. So it improved my numbers very, very much.
Cool.
Then I decided to do something else. I did test group number 1 random GIF. Test group number 2 random GIFs.
Yeah.
Test group number 3 random GIFs. Let it go to work with 200 each in each group. I got the data back, and then I looked at the data. And I was like, this cannot be true.
Yeah.
This doesn't, no, it's not true. I double-checked, I triple-checked, I quadruple-checked, I checked a full week. Every time something is broken here, it does not work. Because the one that had 2 random GIFs has almost 100%. It has 97. Really? Exactly. And I was like, oh, but it must be horrible replies.
Yeah.
No. Much better than all of the replies that I had. So then my head started going like, what is going on with humanity? Why don't we understand anything? What's wrong with us? Oh my God, it hurts.
So that's easy, I mean, to hack the system in some way, right?
Yeah. But then I'm trying to figure out, what is this? So I start to broadening this experiment. I run it for several years, I think up to like 10K matches. I tried it in 25 different countries. All worked. So then I was like, I need to figure out why this works. So I start doing this at my keynotes. So I ask people, why does it work? So then I have the different answers. I basically outsource this because I couldn't figure it out. So then we have the classical examples like, oh yeah, but it's because it's like funny. It's because it's like weird. You are different. So then the thing is, how do you measure this over time? So if it's funny and new, it should go down after time, right? It doesn't seem to do that. So no, I don't think so. And then when it can't get worse, there's one GIF of all of these that always worked. If it's involved, alone in 3 or 2, it always works. And this is where my I don't want to live anymore. This is the thing. I look at it and it's, you remember Gremlins?
Yeah.
There is one of them then dressing up like a bride. Do you remember this? Apparently it's called transsexual gremlin, but I think...
Goran can look at that, yeah.
Yeah, you can Google it.
Transsexual gremlin.
I always named it as sexy gremlin because that's what I was thinking it was, but apparently the picture is called transsexual gremlin. So it's the lipstick kind of...
This might ruin my
You should go into
the cash after
Google
incognito mode.
Incognito mode, thank you.
No, but then I looked upon this and it's like, why is this then? I kept asking. One really interesting part in this kind of weird journey I had is that in all the kind of Northern Europe, where we have society where we are not kind of really into marriage in the same amount of time or that traditional way of looking. Yeah, that's the one, the close up with the kissing there this one. That's the one.
The poltergeist. Okay.
It's just insane, to be honest. Here, don't go in there.
Now your new profile is destroyed.
Don't go in here. Stop going in here now. It's totally destroyed. You should have done it.
You didn't do picture in picture.
Exactly. Nevertheless.
Okay, so that was the absolutely best one?
Yes, and then I started looking upon it. So what I've noticed that when I did this in Southern Europe and other parts of the world, what they noticed was I didn't think of this as anything more than a gremlin with lipstick. But then they say, but you're joking about the reason why we're all here. It's the value getting married and then you just poof, burst the bubble in a fun way, unexpected way. We're all here stressed, trying to behave.
So they had some reasoning behind it then.
So there is some reasoning coming up. I also encountered the same kind of reasoning because I did a lecture at Physicum about basically how algorithms over time, meaning all the way to the Bible and to now, has changed sexual selection. During my lecture, which is a serious lecture of that, I also run this test on the side, so it auto-runs. What then happens is that person is like, I got the matches, and after the lecture, people come up, talk to you, they want to bounce ideas. So I'm just going to turn off this, and I see how it matches with one of the other guest professors. And I'm not going to mention her name, but it was fun with Stephen Hawkins, but this is 10 times. It's like, no. And I watch my phone, and it sends 2 GIFs. One is a guy that stands with the two guns like this, the nice guy in the bar. So you went to Barcelona to F ... a lot of guys. Second one is a dog trying to copulate with a bucket.
And this is your script automatically sending this to some famous professor or something.
Yeah. And I, of course, I have like a panic attack. I like turn off the phone. I went home and I was like, Stefan, what is wrong with you? You could have just stopped. It was fun. You could have just stopped. Why can you never stop? Why do you have to be so freaking curious all the time? Why do you always take it too far? And I was like, and then, my friend's like, but you have a reason. You have like 200 students there. It's like, yeah, it's inappropriate as hell. But I mean, you can't really be fired for this. And I was like, okay, I take out the phone. I take out the phone. Preparing, how to write that I'm sorry, forgiveness speech and all of this. And then I look at the phone and then I read, ha. So typically you, Stefan, to just tell it as it is. I guess that's why you're all here. But we put up the charade of a modern man trying to blah, blah, blah. Not to say that we're just an animal that just want to have love. And I was like, that's not what I said. So then that hit me. What I actually did was a clue. That was the number one clue that for me solving this. So what I did was I looked upon this. So my hypothesis is then the weirder the combination, the better it is. Yeah. The way that I did this was looking upon time spent in, when you have the 3 dots when you're typing. And then I looked upon the other one when I did a really long reply. That could be the reply back. That was like never more than 30 seconds. Maybe a minute if that was super long. But around 30 seconds. The average of the 2 GIFs is 18 minutes of trying to type something. So what I did was literally making not you, but the other one on the other side, thinking about me, what I was trying to say in the context of dating. Do you see what I'm doing here now? So we can compare this now to what I talked about earlier on selling graphs to executives. I thought dating was about having a good pickup line. This is what my guy friend said. I needed to explain it technically. No. My female friend said, Stefan, you need to be kind and curious and ask them about how they feel and listen. No, they don't want to tell their life to a stranger. They don't trust me yet, as you talked. What I needed to do was to make them think about me in the context of dating. I needed to make the executives think about their problem in a graph thinking mindset. So I provide graph thinking mindset because they already know their problem. That's how I took a very stupid project from Facebook all the way to Tinder and applied it on how to sell graphs, which is back to what we talked earlier on, a very chaotic layer called reality. A simplification up here.
In short, can you phrase it like the trick is to make them think? Is that the proper way?
I think about me in the context of dating, because the context is important, right? It's not just about thinking about me, but they trying to make sense of the combination.
Yes.
I had a professor in Venice that tried this. It's like, it doesn't work here. Can you show me what you sent? And he sent like one guy with the rose in the mouth and then the gondoliere. It's like, this is not random. You have picked this. Yes. You just take 2 random, send these 2. And he's like, it worked. So the stranger they are, we're trying to do the combination. I think this is why the 2 of them also work better than 1 or 3, because you're trying to take one and combine it with the other and then make sense of it. But what's really happening is that you're talking to yourself now.
I mean, I think it's a very surprisingly apt and useful metaphor to have, to make them think, to make them make sense of things in the context you want them to think in some way. Yeah. And that works for dating.
Exactly.
It works for sales, marketing. I think it works potentially for rhetorics in general if you want to convince someone of something, right? Yeah,
no, totally. And I mean, I just did this because I was a curious idiot, I guess, from the beginning.
You should write a paper about this. This is a seriously scientific experimentation, like on the world, right?
Yeah. No, but this is part of the one that I started with expressing creativity as a differential equation. So this is maybe what I will do in Österlen on my garden leave.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, though.
Yeah. The time has flown by far too fast, and we haven't even got into Neo4j or anything yet. So I was proposing now that we go in lightning talk mode, or
we can do another 2.5 hours, no problem.
I can come tomorrow also.
Yeah.
We do next time.
No, you stay until tomorrow. So
Okay.
Let's see how long YouTube will let us to stream. So it's fine.
But we have so many interesting topics to speak to or speak about, and I think we need to cover a bit about just what Neo4j is and things like that. And
so I just wanted to point out that this story that I wanted to bring is actually like going to, fit correctly now with the rest of the part when we're talking about data and coding and Neo4j and AI in general, because and we started with the GPT. And it's all in the end is about user behavior and usability of the tool.
Yeah.
And so it's a good
how the
story
tool in
start.
itself kind of like we build some technology, and then that technology start rebuilding us, and then we iterate on technology that iterates on us, and then it's just climbing. So I think that's what I'm doing in a semi-structured but fun way.
And we as a human, we are just basically, imagine that we are trying to duplicate the way how we behave in a real world, in a digital world.
Yeah.
We saw that with the event platform that we built and etc. It just didn't, some things didn't work. But I mean, it didn't work like we thought that it's going to be.
Exactly.
But then people found out a different way how to use it, and it became like completely different behavior than before. And so I think that we should also stop thinking that with AI and with digital twins and analytics and whatever product we build out of them, that we are doing a 100% digital twin of the reality, because it's not the same. And also it just basically differs. Yeah. And the behavior is not here the same, and it's not basically here. Yeah. It doesn't go.
No, but I think to your point, they're bridging also the creativity talk that we do, and leaning into Neo that we're supposed to talk to. So I remember when we introduced graph algorithms, basically network algorithms to be run, right? At the time, it's not like I'm stupid or uneducated on this, but you're going to have your favorite, which in essence could say that when I had a business problem, I know what recipe to create, like what are the combination of algorithms I'm going to run. So I'm going to have my favorite that I run to solve it. So I really don't validate and find anything new. I just validate that I'm competent enough to solve the business problem with my existing toolbox. So we early on said that a data science profile differs a lot from any engineers, or you're like, one of the cool things is that you can do multiple hops, right? Endlessly almost, and return in real time, which is the benefit of this. You don't have to do the joins, which slows down. So then the same goes for the data scientists. But however, we argued early on that it wasn't really any USP. It wasn't a selling point, because data science doesn't really care. And I was like, this is because they are bound not to care now. But the thing is, what I learned, I call this approach the idiot, by the way, because it's just what I did. So we had 7 at the time community algorithms. I used Louvain and maybe Union Find or something. That's the 2 I always used, and I ignored the rest. But then one day I sat down. It's like, how do I learn about this? Because if I can run it and it can return in almost real time, I can actually run all 7 and see the different result. And all of a sudden I start finding things that I didn't know that I wanted to know. And all of a sudden, by just applying randomness or curiosity or whatever you want to call it in a structured way, it allowed me to find new things. So all of a sudden, I started to have new favors based on that. And then I started to combine the different groups together. And all of a sudden, I learned so much more by letting go of what I already know. So doing that structure kind of deep knowledge combined with new perspective, but a structured way of doing it. And then all of a sudden, everybody cares about speed now.
Cool. Let's try to do some lightning talks, and let's try to keep it as extremely brief as we can. 30 seconds or 35 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Nah. No, I'm kidding.
Interrogation slide. What is Neo? What is Neo? What is the graph database? Should we cover that one?
Go for it. What is Neo4j?
So it's a labeled property graph, meaning that it stores data in a kind of different way, right? So you don't need to know databases, but we can do very simple, right? So if you think about Excel, it's stored in tables, and then you link that to another Excel document, and then we all know what Goran does because he goes on his phone and now he messes with the document, and all of a sudden it says false. The link is broken or the join is out.
Yes.
So the story here is that it's not structured in tables, but it's structured rather that the network in itself, meaning that you don't have the kind of join table, so you don't have the computation. You only have to traverse the graph, meaning you can just walk around it, which is the beauty, because if you have a network structure, and we can take something as shortest path. So how are Stefan and Anders connected in the, I don't know, Stockholm data graph? We have you, we have me, and now we need to figure out what is the shortest path. Simple, because we just traverse. If we don't know how many hops that is, that would be a very dangerous thing. If we pay per hop, for example, all of a sudden you don't really, or in most cases, some of the vendors actually have a little bit of a not nice way of pricing that, but we're not going to mention names now. Be nice. So I think it's another way of storing it, which resembles a network. So it would have vertices and edges, or it can add nodes, relationships, call it what you want.
If we reverse the problem, I mean, so many people are used to traditional relational databases, the normal SQL type of database engines that you have out there.
Yeah.
And of course, they have their uses, but they also have their problems. And I guess what you said before, as soon as you have relationships to itself, it creates these kind of many-to-many relationships, which is really hard for them to create, right?
Yeah.
And would you say this is one of the strongest suits or the stronger USPs of graph databases?
I think when we know or have a hunch that the relationship between things are of value, we say, or used to say, I don't think we do it anymore, that like the relationship are first type citizens, right?
Then you have relational databases. Sounds like that should be the perfect,
Exactly, which is not, but nevertheless. No, but I think when would be a good thing would be, and I think early on I would guess like, oh, this is going to change everything. Let's throw out all the old ones. Let's get only this. This is so perfect, so easy. But I think that's a stupid and not so elegant idea of thinking, because what I think of and what I do see working with this is that you have a huge stack of databases. Very often you need to store data, right? It's much cheaper to store and much more reliable, I would argue, because it's a technology that's been around like for ages almost, or for ages actually. So in that sense, I would argue that store it that way. But if you have an idea that the value would be within multiple sources connected, take it for a spin in the graph, because if we talked PageRank earlier or any of these algorithms, they would return a score. A score fits very good in a table, right? It's very hard to compute in that tabular structure with multiple somewhat external sources, unstructured and so on. So I think for a very little amount, you can actually make the whole IT thing a lot more smarter by combining the different toolboxes. And that's my kind of view of going forward. It is not binary either or. I would say use the right tool for the right thing and combine them, because as any craft, the more tools you have,
I think I've actually worked quite a lot with graph databases in my past as well, and I think it's
Do you have a favorite one?
It's called something with N.
Oh, this is good. Emil will be happy now.
But there are some others that actually work with big data sets as well.
Yes.
Parallelize well, and and they
Very good.
start with S.
Yes.
Anyway, I think people don't understand, that some problems are really, really hard to model in relational databases with simple like row-like structure. But in general, if you think about a graph, as I said in the beginning, I think it's the most general kind of representation, and in some cases, it's actually the most efficient one as well. And this is obviously when you have, for example, social graphs or any graph that has, I would argue, and please disagree, any type of many-to-many relationship, meaning that you connect people to people, transistor to transistor, or you're trying to find the best way to create a circuit board with shortest path between the different holes that you drill in it or whatever. It's a lot of relationships to itself.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good description, and it ties back to one of the phrases that we always use, like graphs are everywhere, because they are really everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the things. I was running my first 4 years at NEO. I ran the Innovation Lab, basically prototyping new types of use cases. But I always say there is only one type of use case. There's a knowledge graph, meaning connecting whatever tabular thing you have, and then answering or doing a recommendation on that. Basically, and they're just very little different from if you do your example, like you can do 10 more. You can do, what is the difference between smurfing, layering, or circular money flow compared to a customer journey or a patient journey or a supply chain journey? Identical in one sense, right? Of course, different in many, many ways, but pattern matching would be the same. So I think, to your point,
and in
very
some
true.
cases, it's actually a much more efficient way. And I can just share an example from the Spotify Times.
Oh,
if you simply
yes.
have a graph of artists, albums, songs, and users. Let's keep users out of it because it's too much data. But anyway, if you simply have the catalog of of songs, artists, and albums, and you simply want to find, what type of songs have the author of a certain other song written, or perhaps co-authored with another author that may not wrote that song, but in some other song did it. So you go to a second degree kind of connection, meaning it's not directly have a relationship with a certain song, but it's like 2 degrees. Yeah, I would say, and then you assume it's like tens or hundreds of millions of items of songs. It's impossible even to use a normal relationship database to solve this, but properly indexed and fast graph database can do it extremely much faster.
Yeah, no, I think you're on point on this. And I think a lot of the early on struggle was that we have learned that it was impossible. So we are in the phase of, we talked about learning and unlearning early on. I think a lot of what I saw in the data community over these 5 years is the unlearning part. And beginning of course, unlearning is scary. Oh, I built my whole career on this. Is it over? I don't want to. So skeptical. But then people start to lean in and see that there is a lot of the knowledge that actually are super transferable. And it's just another tool, right? That fits neatly in the toolbox for those problems. So I think, very good.
We spoke too much already. It was supposed to be 30 seconds.
What the hell? Goran, you should tell us 30 seconds. Okay.
You don't need to do 30 seconds. But I said we are going 2.5 hours, right? Let's beat the record, 2:47.
Okay. But still, we know, this is an AI podcast as well, and E4J also, besides having an awesome graph database, it also have a lot of data science functionality in it. Yes. You spoke about some algorithms. Can you just mention a bit, what are the data science functionalities in Neo4j?
So there will be a couple of different ones. I think the early on stuff would be the algorithms, different kind of categories. You got the centralities, you got the path findings, you got the similarities.
And you moved a bit too quickly here. Some people may not even know what the centrality is.
But you told me to do it in 30 seconds. You have to decide. Either it's going to be one. I was trying to, how can I capture this in that short amount of time?
Okay, but let's do it in 35 seconds.
Okay, let's do it a little bit slower. So we have pathfinding, a family of going from somewhere to somewhere else within the graph. We have 2 spots, or we want to go from one and out to many, for example. That would be pathfinding. Yeah. We talked about page rank between a centrality degree and so on. That would fit in centrality family, meaning that what is important. We can do the quick example of Twitter adding followers instead of just friends of, meaning that all of a sudden I don't have to follow you, but you can follow me. Hence, I would be more popular if that were the case of many others, or the other way around. So that would be that part. Then we have community detection, meaning that it does clustering, partition, grouping things in certain ways, figuring out those. Then we have also a very neat one, which is the similarity, basically looking upon how alike something is, meaning, so we have the Jacquard and other various ones. Meaning overlap, centrality, and so on. So a lot of these, and very often the combination of these together will create some magic, right? So maybe you would run your degrees to figure out the centrality of things and importance. Maybe you would like to do similarity. Maybe you take the similarity and then use that to create your communities. All of a sudden you have similar communities in that sense. And there's various ways. Then, of course, there is the more AI feature things with embeddings, with link and node predictions, for example, which is also very, very interesting. And then there's also a bucket that might have been open. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not sure if I can. But there might be some even more interesting things coming. Let's say it like that.
We have had other people speaking about it. So it would be strange if NEO doesn't move in that direction.
Yeah.
And of course we have...
It's all about time, I think. I don't want to put product on spot here. No, but I think...
Okay, we can skip it if you...
No, but I think the whole kind of embedding space and leaning towards graph neural networks, which is the obvious next step in this that we're talking about. I think it's so interesting because all of a sudden, I remember one time when I've used embedding first. So I'm pretty good at coming up with stupid but unexpected recipes, getting very good result, tuning them. And then, we just added embeddings. We did one of the Innovation Lab sprints. We worked with an American client. And then we just had a couple of extra hours. So then let's just try this new alpha thing. It wasn't the alpha tier, so it's not at all production ready. We tried it and the result came back and it's much better. And the tricky part where I actually took a beat on this personally was that I usually say, it's easy to stand on the stage and say, there's no AI going to take your job. It's just a data scientist. But all of a sudden, the system returned something that was very hard to kind of reverse engineer to figure out why did it get this result. I can't even replicate it now that I have the answer. And that was one of the annoying parts that, letting go of that ego part, I think was very interesting. But I think the benefit that I see in this is running these transactional as well as analytical things in the same system, because all of a sudden,
is that a good thing though? Does that really scale?
It's not the same system, so it will be different behind the scenes, but similar structure, meaning it flows much easier in between, I would argue, because very often, your prediction is going to be as good as your data quality and your ability to get it. And there's a lot of talk about, wow, fantastic result. And if people only know how much of that result is digging in trenches, trying to figure out things and very little about fancy technology at the end, a lot of it is also fixing the stuff. So in that sense, I think from an organizational level, it's easier that it's moved.
I'm so eager to go deeper into graph neural networks. And I have some friends that are really loving this topic from Rise and other places. But we don't have the time here now. Some other time, perhaps. But it is, I think, a really interesting field also for deep learning. And deep learning has this kind of aspect of displacing people at some point. All the algorithms I knew before has to be or can be replaced with something else that's potentially much more valuable or efficient in some way. Who knows? Cool. Okay. Functionalities of Neo4j. Data science, of course. They have a lot of these functionalities. Let's skip that. I think let's go a bit more philosophical, if that's okay with you.
Oh yeah, this is good.
And we spoke a bit before about the trust in AI, and I'm trying to decide what the best topic is here, but. Let's before we go back to that, let's go back to what you said about academia, because it's I have a background in academia as well, and it's something that if I just give a short intro to my thinking here, that there is a clear trend where we can see some of the top tech giants in the world that they are driving research and scientific work in extreme. Of course, we have universities also performing really well, but there is a clear trend in we having a brain drain from some universities being hired into tech giants, and they have resources to build large language models that requires computational resources that no university has. available, etc. What do you think about what do you say the main problems with the academia of today is? It's a hard question, I know, but if we try to think about
30 seconds.
Yeah, what are the problems with the academia of today?
I think that one problem that you stated now, it's also interesting in what sense, like, because what it tells me is that they need to find their kind of lighthouse. Like, what are we standing for? Are we just like preparing for factories? Then Mother Factory is just, in this case, DeepMind, Alphabet, whatever you want to call it, Meta, whatever of these big ones. Or do we actually want to drive research? And very often you want to do both, I guess. You want to make money, but you also want to make the world, understand the world, which is the whole goal of them.
Yeah, and we've spoken about research, versus engineering or something a number of times, and you can think about engineering in terms of the goal of engineering is to build a product or something that has value for a user in some kind.
Yeah,
and research more about building knowledge, not necessarily value for users, but just obtaining or building knowledge. I'm not sure if you agree with those definitions, but it's at least one.
I think it's a good.
And then we can also see there are, we haven't spoken that much about Elon Musk, so I have to bring in some Elon Musk quotes.
Elon time.
Yeah, you did already in the beginning. It's enough. Let's move on.
Damn it.
I have to have, okay.
All right, bring it in.
But anyway, you can think about, how should you drive research, and it can be that.
They did the research about how much time we dedicate to Elon Musk on this. It's too much.
It's very meta.
He needs to start paying us for commercial for this.
Furthermore, now we will just Mr. Salami. So we talk about Mr. Salami.
Oh, okay. Let's call it Mr. Salami. But Mr. Salami, he's. But then his algorithm will fail. The one that did statistics on what we speak about. Okay, so Mr. Salami.
Okay, Elon Musk. Keep going.
Horrible name. He did this with a purpose. It's better to have Elon Musk than Mr. Salami.
Okay. Anyway. He has a very clear goal. He wants to provide value in certain sense. If you take Tesla, of course, he wants to have a car that is, energy efficient and accelerates sustainable use of energy in the world and blah, blah. And also like full self-driving and whatnot. And then to have full self-driving, you need to have AI. And if you want to build factories that are efficient and automate all the work and manufacturing of these cars, you have to have a lot of AI and so forth. So then the thing driving what you do research on is really what the end value is. Is it to automate manufacturing, which I would argue is the strongest point of Tesla, or if it is full self-driving or having the most efficient batteries or whatnot. But you can phrase it like engineering first research. So first you have a product you want to build, factory automation or something.
Yeah.
That causes a lot of question. Those questions could be research questions that needs to have knowledge built to be able to engineer a product in the
solution
end.
To it, yeah.
So it's driven by the engineering value back to, okay, then we need to do research here. Back to even doing more artificial general intelligence kind of research potentially, because what he calls it a real world AI, that is necessary to have full self-driving. So in the end, it is like it's driven by a very clear value, but it goes back to more or less basic research in that way. So that's one way to drive it. It is like value driven. The other one, if you take academia, and some people even don't think that you should even consider value when driving what the research should be. It should be simply of building knowledge, and you don't know in advance what the value will be. It's more basic research driven in some sense. Do you have any sense, should we have both? Should we focus more money on one of the type of research methods, or what do you think here?
So I kind of did 180 degree on this one. In the beginning, I was like, I don't know what academia is doing. It's too slow. Nothing happens. Why can't we just do something?
Yes.
Why can't we just lean in and, But more lately, I've actually started to come to, and also this is part of the work that I'm doing around creativity. So one is the deep knowledge in this case. One is the new perspective pushing it. And what we need to fix here is the model holding them together. So I would see academia even going further down the rabbit hole of exploring what we don't even know is the value. Keep doing that.
Yes. So more deep or basic research type of.
Exactly. Kind of do more of that, but then let also the other part exist. But I need, what I think is what broken is that they have drifted apart a little bit, or there is not a function. One is sucking too much energy of the other. Let's say it like this, and we can assume which one that is. So I think what is broken is the process to facilitate this kind of deep knowledge and new perspectives. And I think we need both, because what we developed in these companies is going to drive ideas for the other one, and vice versa. So I think both, but we need to work on that thing, and that's not. It's going to be both of them needing to fix it, or a third part.
And we can easily see the engineering-driven research is blooming, and you have all the tech giants to prove it. But how do we make academia and more basic research work better? I mean, I myself have been in that before, and spent 40% of my time writing funding applications, and then doing stuff that perhaps I didn't really want to do, and don't see the value of potentially. I mean, at least in my view, it needs to be improved in some way to have even basic research, even though it's not value-driven, but rather knowledge-driven. It needs to have some way to be made more efficient, I would argue.
No, but I think that is a little bit of the problem, but that's also, I would argue, the problem on working on, let's say, a Silicon Valley scale-up when you have money in the bank. It's just like any public government at the end, right? You lose track of value of money very often. So there's a lot of efficiency that can be gained. So I think that would be interesting to do that, but I think we see the same problem often in other places, but we are prone to see it in one place because we maybe belong to the other system. So I see a lot of it actually in companies that I work with over time, and I'm not referring to Neo specifically here, but I can see it in with my friends in the company that I worked as an advisor for, that we kind of lose track of time, meaning time, money in this case. And I think for academia, it's the same. We lose track of time, and then also seeing how we can evolve the way we teach things. I have a professor that I'm a very close friend with, that we talk about these topics very often, and how he has a more modern maybe approach, which is just common sense. But it's, even if they proved it scientifically that it actually is better, it just takes a little bit too long time to implement it, because at the end there are people being threatened by it, right? So we have like a resistance within the organization.
In some way.
Yeah. So it's a kind of, we don't want to change, but we need to change a little bit. And it's a thing. So I don't have a solution. I wish I have. Maybe this is what I'm going to be doing. We're going to talk to Rice tomorrow morning. So maybe this is what I need to fix.
Yes, that would be awesome.
A slight Friday task.
Well, for that to happen, perhaps you need to be as creative as you can. And you have written a lot of articles about creativity, I think, in different ways. We also have spoken a bit about generative AI, and then they are potentially creative. I'm not sure if you agree, but what do you think about creativity? If you think about AI versus human here, and from a more philosophical point of view, would you argue, for one, that AI is creative with the type of generative AI we have today?
Oh, my favorite topic. We did a campaign about this for Absolute. Would machines be creative? Very funny. Nevertheless, I think this is a topic that's been around as long as I can remember. We talked about it already upstairs before turning on the microphone. So one of my early memories of generative AI and AI being creative is a program written by Ray Kurzweil called Cybernetic Poets. So what it does, it takes some text and then you pick any of your favorite poet, and then you write a poem in that style. Oh my God, this saved so many Valentine's Day for introverted Stefan. You should try it. You have to have Windows 90.
You want me to try it now, or
No,
you
no,
think
no.
like as a person I should try it because maybe it's going to improve my life?
Your speaking skills. No, I'm joking. You need to run it. I think Windows 95 is the oldest one it run on, so it's going to be a little bit of work here.
Wait. So again,
cybernetic poet. No, the interesting part here is the hint is in it runs. The latest version runs on Windows 95, right? So it's not going to be smart. However, the output is highly creative and very hard to distinguish from the actual work because it's an abstract art form to write poems, especially in the older styles, right? So do we even know what creativity is would be my question to this. And I think what AI solves is the new perspective, as we said. So it's
$30, man.
Yeah. Buy it. You see how fresh it is.
Yeah.
You have to pay for it now?
This looks like KD Nudges, man.
Yeah, this is very good. It's very good, actually. You should try it. I really recommend it's impressive. Interface, they have some work to do, but...
It's Windows 95. Even XP there. Okay.
Oh, they have updated. This is new things.
That's why you pay $30.
Yeah, it used to be free before. Now you have to pay for it because it's XP
so
now.
it says like download a free copy for $30.
You can probably ask ChatGPT to do it in style of Kurzweil's CyberArt.
Yeah, you can do it. But the thing is here is that it is not smart. It's just that what it does is scramble things, right? Yeah. And I think this is for me a lot. And also we have creative movement. You can look upon David Bowie, right? How he copied basically that movement. What was it called now? Beatniks, was it maybe? And nevertheless, basically, fridge magnet poems, he writes something, he cut ups and reordered it into a new thing, meaning just throw them out and then it becomes something else. So he adds kind of this randomness to it. And I think that's the part where I say new perspective. So that can be generated easily because that's just throwing.
Is what you are saying that creativity can be actually made by simple algorithms sometimes?
I think so. And the value of the creative output, however, sits also within another person, right? So I'm going to judge it. And the tricky part here is that the way I look upon the world is based upon my experience of the world itself, right? So it's a self-feeding loop within people, which is also, so this is so much more gooey than is it creative or not? Everything I would argue is creative or it's just the old.
I mean,
who is on here?
I think it's similar to I think the oldest kind of AI applications almost is ELISA. I think it's 1960s or something. This kind of psychotherapist that basically the only thing it did, it used this kind of Rogerian style of therapists. So they basically just reorder what you just said in a style of a question.
Yeah.
Just reorder the word a bit and made it a question, and that's it. And that simply made people feel like it actually had value in some sense.
Classical facilitator trick, the mirroring part. It's one of the easiest way to get people to talk. It's scary how good it is actually. But I think it's also coming back to that. It's like, it's very easy with very simple few prompts, like the classical ladder. What do you think? With a question, or let's talk about
I remember also 5 years ago I got questions at some talk, and I was trying to give the impression of how AI has really exponentially improved in power in recent years. This is before generative AI, but I said at that time, someone asked me the question of what should humans focus on once we have self-driving cars and we have manufacturing automation and whatnot. And I remember I said creativity. If you keep working on being a creative, you will always have a job in some way. I think I was wrong.
Yes.
Partly.
But I think you were wrong in maybe not in the way you think.
Okay.
Or I think you actually were right. It's just that we look at, if we define creative as music, art, whatever, I think you're wrong, right? But if you think about it as the definition that I also gave to a child, I gave it to a former president, but also to myself and the process of the idiot. figuring out things. This is what we do, right? We build things that solve problems, and then we figure out new problems.
Yes.
And that is the creative part, figuring out the new, right? So I think you're super right in that, maybe just not in the traditional art creativity.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, if you think like that, you can basically see the AI tools, if we call it that, like if it's DALL-E for generating images or ChatGPT for text or Lambda or whatnot.
Yeah.
That simply raises the bar a bit what humans can do. So in some sense, I could actually start to generate music, even though I'm not a musician.
Most likely. And I think what is even more interesting in this is that what I do a lot when I have stupid ideas, that's what I do, right? So remembering back at my time at Neo, I had to do 2 sales kickoff during the midst of COVID. How do you do a global sales kickoff when people literally hate Zoom meetings? It is like, first of all, you can't fix a time zone that works for everyone. This is just horrible for anyone. And then we had to do a technical break in there for 5 minutes. And it's like, I just pulled out the timer because we need to have something. And then I said, this is the most boring thing I've ever done. Tomorrow I will play a song here. And then I, of course, freaked out about it. But what I do often is that I use my creative part and my engineering part. So what I do often is I cut the keyboard in half. Here I play the solo instrument. On the left hand, I play the rhythm part. So then I decide I'm going to do B Dorian or whatever. I pick a chord and a mode, and then, or a scale and a mode or whatever. Then I map the chords to individual keys, meaning I can play chords with one hand, which I can't because my hands aren't wide enough. So they're going to be basically just triads that I can play with this one. But then I map it so I can actually do that. But then what we also can do here is that we can layer this with any kind of sequence. So I can either play the chord as chord, or I can play individual notes, or I can map them in any way, and then I can layer them. So I layer very often 6 or 7 of them. Then I just have pedals for volume under, meaning I play rhythm here. I can go up and down, and I play the solo part here, meaning that I can play like a Philip Glass orchestra of 10 pianos at once. But that said, there's a lot of these things that are considered cheating. But what I've noticed when I give this to friends, kids, and also friends that don't know how to play piano, all of a sudden they reduces the threshold to sound good, meaning that they find more energy of doing it. And then just a simple thing where I color coordinated the keys for them helps them to understand, this is where I'm supposed to play. This is the right in this key. And then they actually learn it, the muscle memory also, by just looking where to play. And then they and it's completely not the right way to learn, or traditionally. But then, they become better players by actually using the technology out there. So I think that's the interesting part, because what we have now, we build a technology that then recreates the way we learn.
Right.
Just as the word did, just as the printing press did, just as the computer have done, just as AI will rewrite us.
As internet has done and whatnot.
And everything, right?
Yeah.
Clothes, wheat, if we're going to go all the way back to that.
Cool. So we can say it. It's been amazing just in the last couple of years how generative AI has exploded. And for one, it complements how we can use other traditional deep learning, traditional machine learning, or rule-based AI. But what happened if we just extrapolate like 5-10 years ahead now? Some people are afraid about this. Some people say even that there will be a point of singularity where AI will be better at humans, not on a single task, but because that's so many examples already where machines are much better than humans, but at every task. And even not only will AI be better at every task, it will be better at every task even if all humans combined try to solve it. So it will be this kind of super intelligence that we potentially have. And it will potentially be a singularity where we also lose control over how it works. You can even, if we just try to be a bit dystopian here, we can say that ChatGPT can fix code. You can send it a stack trace and ask it, how do you fix this code? That code could potentially be its own code.
Yeah.
It could be something that you could actually go and say, here is the code of ChatGPT. You could send it and say, this was a bad performance. Can you please fix this piece of code? It will generate a new code for you. You can cut and paste that and put that back in the system and then restart the system or part of it. And that you can do today.
Yeah.
What happens if you cut out the human in that part?
Yeah.
And ChatGPT starts to self-improve?
Fantastic.
Does that make you happy or scared?
I don't have kids, first of all. Calculated idea. I think, the interesting part is most likely something will happen. I have zero idea. And I think that's the only sane reply I can give to this, that I have no idea. We can speculate on this topic because it's a fun thing to talk about. And then maybe we're completely right or completely wrong. Future will tell, I guess. But the interesting part is that every time when this conversation comes, we talk about one system scaling enormously, which it does. However, every time I talk about this, nobody talks about what happens to the humans, because I think that is the interesting part. Over this time of this change, fundamental change, like where we have a general AI or something remarkably close, how does that affect people? Because I think this is the interesting topic, right? How does it change our intelligence? I mean, we can just take a simple example as Google. All of a sudden, all information was almost available. Yes. Now I would argue it's almost is for real. I said a couple of years ago that internets finally work, right? So all of a sudden we learned how to gather information. The actual book as the information has zero value anymore. Now it's what I could do with the gathering. What we see now is the paradigm of making sense of this. You can even do accessibility features in your operating system to just summarize text. And it's going to do a great job by just removing fluff. Meaning this is what I need to read. And I do this a lot when I had to read up on things and I haven't done it because I'm lazy and busy with stupid ideas. And it does a great job, right? So all of a sudden the summarizing and making sense part will become just as normal as the gathering part was before. Before Google, Power was encyclopedia, right? You have all the volumes. You're a rich and intellectual person. All of a sudden that moved to internet. Now we see the next move. So the interesting part is how that behavior changes over time. And the tricky part is that it's starting to go fast now. Yeah. It's going really fast. And we have said that it's gone fast. But I think that's the good point of this. Even if it's not perfect, it actually gets people up from their seat.
And I don't think people understand also the exponential speed.
No.
I don't think people still think linearly. They think because in the last 10 years, we have seen this progress.
Yeah.
And then they assume in the coming 10 years, we will have the same progress.
Yeah.
But that's completely wrong, right?
It's completely wrong. And this is also the way it takes, because it's also, when we draw this, we draw the hockey stick, right? This is how people say, and now we are in the explosive phase. I actually believe we are in the explosive phase for real. The thing, however, it is not a one-dimensional thing.
Okay, what do you mean?
Nobody can go in any direction here, right? It doesn't have to go exactly like this. It can also go here and it can go there, and it can be a combination of a lot of this. It's a 3-dimension or even more dimensions to this. And I think that's the thing that I think is the hardest part to kind of predict. Where the hell will it end up? Because that comes back to the discussion about engineering and engineering research driven.
Engineering first research, yeah.
That's how you said it, yeah. So it comes back to that kind of narrative and how academia and what role it plays in that. And all of a sudden we're screwed because they're not going to fix that in 5 years. So I think that's the real problem that we should be focusing on, coming back to what are the real problems that we need to solve. I think that is one of the problems that are significantly problematic. If not, just look already now, what is the most powerful nation? It's 6 companies.
Good, well said. That's another T-shirt quote, more or less. I very much agree, and I wish more people understood that. It's truly the case, and it's not just Americans, actually.
No.
Okay, so we are seeing some kind of exponential continued growth, as we have seen also for a number of years. And then we don't, of course, as you said, know what will happen in 5 years or 10 years. And anyone that says they know exactly, they are probably very naive, I would even argue.
Yeah.
What was it, Bill Gates or someone said? Making predictions is hard, but predicting the future is harder or something. I don't recall exactly. But of course, making prediction about the future. And he said something about the 640K RAM is all you need or something in the 1980s or something. And that was obviously not correct. Anyway, are you then, given what we seems to agree that this will happen in coming years, concerned or happy about that? Are you, if we assume that in 10 years we will have significantly improved AI systems that could potentially go good, go well, and or could potentially go bad? Are you?
I think one of the things, I think it's one of the only shots that we have solving the other mess we made with the entire planet.
Good, well said. Said.
So I think if we are to fix that part, obviously we can't fix it by our own thinking. We need to go one level up. And I think this is the...
I love that you said that, because, you know, so many people are afraid about, I will lose my job, or we will not have anything to do. But then look at all the challenges we do have in the world with education, with poverty, with climate change, with health and cancer and finding cures for whatever, with energy crisis, with fusion. I mean, the list goes on and on. There are so many things that we need to make significant improvements on, and if we can have better tools and partners like AI to help us with that, then
I think that's we don't have to be worried about singularity. We're going to F up things long before that. So but that's the thing, right? And that's why I think it's the important is how we figure out how to work, how we figure out how to run academia in collaboration with commercial actors in this case, and why it's also important to talk about these hard questions and understand that we need to practice on staying in the gray. I usually say you need to learn to love to be in the gray, and spending a lot of time not in the white and not in the black, you start to see nuances in gray. And I don't talk about that shady BDSM book for whatever it is, right? But that nuances in those things. And the more time we actually spend in there, instead of going, it will kill everybody, it will solve all the problems. No, let's go in here and figure out how we fix things and have those conversations and bet on things and talk about what happens when a significant part of the world would like to have the same standard as we take for granted. Are we the one that's going to let go of our standard? Most likely not. Okay, what's the cost of that? And there's going to be either an option of reducing people on Earth. Not so nice, most likely not going to happen if it's not by any catastrophe.
But the population increase is decreasing, at least, right? It's not this flattening out.
Yeah, it's flattening out. This is what we say, but who knows? But I mean, that enough would be problematic, right? So the other way is to innovate out of the problem. And I think that's the bet we have. It's horrible, right? If you have kids. I don't have kids. Good. I have a dog. It's going to die before me. Well calculated.
Same for me, actually. A dog, no kids. But okay, cool. Time is flying away. Let's try to, if you could keep it short, the answer. Probably not, but
now I will do it. One word.
Okay. Are you an optimist in that in coming, let's call it 5 years, we will see significant benefits of AI, or are you more a pessimist that we will see more harm than good?
Super pessimist.
But don't kid about this, because it is a serious note to this as well. We are seeing a lot of things happening in the world right now with autonomous weapons and whatnot that could potentially easily go wrong as well. So if you take that into consideration, I mean, I understand you kidded a bit about saying you're a pessimist, but there are dangers, right? That it could easily be abused. The tools that we have for dangerous.
Yeah, I think just to answer this, I mean, every single thing we develop, we find a way to mess things up with very often. So most likely we will do it. The thing is, are we, for the first time in history, so connected that we actually have a chance to have a conversation about this is not cool to be doing. I mean, you can take nuclear and the atomic bomb. Yes. If internet would have been around, it would be a different story, most likely. So I'm just going to put my hope to that we are mature enough. We are way far from being enough as of solving everything, but enough to have the conversation. And that I put my hope in. I tried to do a little bit elaborated but shorter one.
I would say that we already proved that it's impossible with this Russia-Ukrainian war. You thought that people are a little bit more 2022.
But everybody knows those people in the eastern part are a little bit strange, right?
No, they're not strange.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
So, but it's a great thing that you pull out. So you would expect that. I still cannot believe that we are in a 2023 and people are thinking about like going to war, and other people are just basically going along with it. But then it comes the question.
And also, how are we going to war, which is an even more strange question.
So it comes a question, a point of a division in the world, because the highly educated people that are actually having a good social economic standard, they probably would not indulge in such activity or tolerate such behavior. However, we also need to be truthful to the fact that there is like a plenty that are still not in that circle.
Yeah. And
that is actually, if we circle back to Trump and race of nationalism, it's obvious. It's obvious to say that is not the case, and people are not in the same position. So,
No, but I think what we see, just to build on that, and then going back to, maybe it's not binary. I mean, what I see is that it's coming almost to, it is a little bit, it's far from good. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to put my bet in the hopes that we're going to figure this out. We're not going to solve it perfectly, but I'm just hoping that we get over the threshold or hurdle so we don't dystopia kill the planet. This is my other side. So I think what we see, even if I think the situation in Ukraine and with Russia is horrible, right? But it's also what we see, we can see this with Iran also, the same going on, right? We actually are seeing and doing much more than what we normally are doing in these things. And I think, of course, it's far from perfect. It's super long from perfect. But we are actually in a stance where we actually can gather the information. We can transmit the information. Let's say it like this. This we solved. Can we handle the transmit of information over time? I think that's proven that we can't. Because what we see in these wars is like, okay, and this is also, it's hard to say, but I mean, look upon my friends. They're like, first everybody talked about it, and now it's just fading. And is there a war anymore?
Exactly.
So we are a little bit better, but far from project. But
yes. So
I try to look on the trajectory.
So I think that we need to agree that we are not at that point of time that we will be rational enough to choose not to indulge ourselves in.
We will never be rational. That's the only rational thing. There is not such a thing as a rational human being.
But also that we are very much divided, and our perspective today is also one of the let's say the privileged one.
Definitely.
And there are people that do not have any choices, or they are not in that position where they can judge if this is right or wrong. They would just
which is going to cause reactions, definitely, and especially threatened from intelligence.
And then we can calculate how many of those people are in the planet and how many people are like in the place where they can actually make the judgment. So.
Why are you going to make this into a negative thing? We're trying to stay positive. He forced me now to. He forced me to go positive.
It's not true. Come on.
we are not ChatGPT here. We can disagree with each other. That's a good thing.
Good.
Let's see. We can do a recording. Let's do like this. What is the date of today? It's 26. Every year on the 26th, we will meet here for a 3 hours conversation and see where we are on this topic.
I like that. I can actually.
Yeah. Awesome. That sounds awesome. Stefan, what's next in your life? What's happening coming weeks, months, privately, professionally?
Very good. Yeah. What's next in my life is that I said I'm out of NEO, so I'm on garden leave. So what I will do next is I will spend a couple of more days here in Stockholm. Then I will get on a train with my dog, go down to the house in Österlen. Yeah. And
beautiful place, by the way.
Very beautiful place. Go to my old farmhouse with no neighbors and start writing up these papers that we talked about. Also worked on new content for lectures and speaking, which I do. So I'm going to go down there, be super bored, alone, and then come up and do some lectures here and there. But mostly what I'm doing the next couple of months is meeting with smart, intelligent people, basically using the power of network to figure out what's next. There are some amazing things already offered. One yesterday, but I'm not going to jinx anything. Let's see where it takes us. And yeah, maybe that's a follow-up thing.
Yes. It sounds awesome. And you're always welcome to come here if you're up in Stockholm and want to have a deep discussion about whatever topic on a Thursday evening or something else.
Yes, sounds great. Thanks a lot. Super nice being here, and thank you for having me.
Anyone that you would recommend, by the way, to come on the podcast? Someone that you would like to listen to when you're down in Österlen?
Yes. Let's see if we can get one of my favorite ones would be Petar Velocevic that I mentioned in DeepMind. I did a recording with him. It went, I think, almost 3 hours. One of the best conversations I ever had on GNNs, totally, only for 3 hours. A little bit of imposter syndrome in there, me admitting that I freaked out in the beginning. But other than that, just that. I think he has a very astonishing mind, a very kind soul, and he can take one of the most advanced topics and explain it in such a way that it feels...
Powerful communicator, yes.
It just feels nice, and you want to hear more, right, on topics, which is like, okay, my head hurts now. What did I actually hear? But it's still fun. That's one of my favorite ones. Another one that I find very interesting is a professor named Marcus Collins. I can also connect you to these if they are in town, if you would like to. He works at Wieden & Kennedy in New York, but what he has studied is basically cultural contagions, how things move within systems of people. He just released a book, which is super good. We have done a lot of lectures together, and it's a very close friend. And just the way he thinks is just amazing. It also gives us hope to the topic. So when I go down the dark rabbit hole, he also brings me up from there. So that would be one of my favorite ones. Let's see if we have another one. Oh, I just have a non-Swedish guest. I'm so bad at Swedish. Another one is Karin Griefer, a former colleague at Publicis, and ask her about her large systems, building systems like Pentagon and these things. Amazing person.
Pentagon, like in what?
The Pentagon. And being inside when it's the F.
Really? Oh.
Very interesting person. Let's see if we can come up with any recommendation locally. No, I don't. I want to hear Goran being here in this seat, and I will be in that seat. What about this idea? That should be fun. Oh. Hot seats.
I'm already here. So.
Oh, damn it. No, but let's see what we come up with. There's some interesting... Let me do it like this. I'm going to come back to you with this one and do some intros because I had some...
No, you're welcome to get a guest and just basically join us with the guest. So we make it even more better.
So that's how I can just have free dinner, snack every Thursday?
Yeah, that is how you do it.
Nice. I like this referral program. Referral program salami. That's what it's called now.
Yes, exactly.
Referral salami.
Stefan Wendin, it's been a true pleasure to have you here. We have so many other topics that we didn't cover, but I think, it was nice to actually go down the rabbit holes that we did in the beginning and actually cover them in depth. And that's really what these kind of long format discussion is all about, to be able to take the discussions where it takes you, so to speak. So with that, I thank you very much for coming here, and let's go for the after work and continue the discussions.
Perfect. And thank you guys for having me. And let's do it again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.